I know.
Good things. So
I'm
if you could
just
describe your today in a color, what color would today be?
the first one that hit me was green, but I'm not sure if it's because I'm staring at. I was literally going like, "How cool is this crystal?" And you're like, "Color green."
Okay, for sure, for sure.
So that's the first green. I think green. Am I supposed to think about it? Am I? Do
Hmm?
I give myself a chance to feel it out? Does it matter?
Doesn't matter at all. There's a follow-up though.
Fair
The
enough.
fo- the follow-up is what color do you want tomorrow to be? Like
Ooh,
if you could choose, what color would you have tomorrow be?
I would have it be blue.
Nice. So you're just talking about gently accelerating your frequency, right? Because green is just below blue if you're going to measure the rainbow, right?
Is it? I'm not sure.
From ascending light patterns, yeah, red would be the lowest frequency visually that we can see.
Oh, okay.
And then as you increase the refractions or the wavelength, the colors become, they're like octaves almost. When we see colors, they're just
Oh,
arbitrary notations of ranges of frequency that we interpret and we label that the range of here to here is known as this color, which is why there's like greenish yellows and like purplish blues, right?
yeah, that makes more sense. Okay, yeah, then I guess I'm going straight from green to blue.
Well, not
Yep.
necessarily, man. Maybe you want to slow down and you want to go from like green to yellow to orange to red and then to purple and then to blue.
That sounds like madness.
Or you could go through white or gray or transparent or clear. Like all of these are available pigments or hues, right?
There's gotta be colors that we don't even know too.
Oh,
We tap into some sideways colors.
absolutely. Like polka dot. This is Sparta. This is definitely madness.
There you go. There you go. What up, everyone? We're back again with Richie ZXY. We're having some rainbow crystal conversations, and I'm stoked because this might be the first time I've got a guest on the channel, and we're gonna keep it focused with one of their fortes.
Hmm.
I do like the bouncing around a lot too, but there's something fun. It's like meeting a stranger, you know. You have nice all over the place conversations, but we're tapping into the crystal conversations this time, folks. Um, and if you want to give yourself a nice little intro again, Richie, just in case there's some new people out there that haven't seen you, do you want to head right into it? Does it matter?
Sure. Hello, my name is Richie. I go by Richie ZXY on the internet and in most dream spaces. I operate a project called Rainbow Crystal, and that's how I teach wellness and educate in things like yoga and energy work. I also operate a project called Imaginaut, which is like an imagination astronaut. And what that consists of is regular communication and routine sharing of information so that there can be a community cultivated on the digital plane that allows for a more networked and connected experience on the physical plane.
Nice. There you have it, you guys. Jocelina Delvan, thanks for tuning in. Julio, thanks for tuning in. Nice to see you guys. Everyone else that's sitting in the background, thank you guys for being here. We have 9 people watching, which is a great number.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's start with why did you want me to bring a crystal? I feel like I met your expectations with bringing this.
Yes, you have achieved A plus.
We're
Ding! Well done.
yes.
I would just be curious to say what you think about that crystal's energy because I have a quartz crystal right here, and I'll describe it if you want to describe that. What kind of crystal do you have there?
Uh, they told me it's a calcite. It's the ones that form with the stalagmites and stalactites. It's like
Hmm?
inside of those things.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah,
and it looks like it's on camera. It looks like it's rich and green in color.
yeah. It's got a fat green in the middle, and there's red. There's a red
Wow.
band on the top and on the bottom.
Whoa.
It's not doing too much justice
Right,
on
right, right.
but
There's nothing quite like in person, but that's super awesome. How do you
I
feel around it?
know.
Like, what kind of vibes does it give you?
um, it's kind of like a not like a not not sluggish because it's not. What's the word I'm looking for? Not dopey either. I don't know. Kind of like like jolly, like old jolly. I don't know, freaking
You know, for sure, you got it. Old, jolly,
old
and
jolly, but slow, but like really slow and
uh,
almost like what's the word? Almost like you're not paying attention to something. Aloof, almost aloof, but jolly. And oh, there you go.
nice.
It seems like an aloof, old but jolly stone, man. I don't know.
Nice. Okay. I enjoyed the fact that the stone itself is expressing a vibration or reminding you of a vibration of aloofness. I think that's a really powerful sensitivity that you're expressing because I
Yeah.
think other people may feel a vibe but not necessarily know how to talk about it. And I mean, you threw a couple adjectives on there, which I think is really enriching because that's you utilizing your unique perspective to describe this thing that is, I mean, pretty darn undescribable.
I yeah.
So
Yeah. I like it. I love it. I saw it and I was like, grab it, bring it home. That's the one.
nice.
Yeah.
Way sweet, way sweet. So vibrationally, would you say that minerals and stones and rocks would, on like a vibrational scale, would they be in the same color range as plants, or would they be separate?
I feel like they would be separate for sure.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm trying to define colors of consciousness in a way, and not to use that as like a maybe octaves of consciousness or ways to measure, because we don't have a common dialogue about it. So if red consciousness would be like representative of root consciousness and maybe crystalline consciousness, then yellow consciousness could be seen as plant consciousness, which has a lot more to do with water.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
So beyond that, there'd
Oh,
be
yeah.
resonating frequencies of how different stones, including moldavite, would affect different people's biology. I don't personally have any moldavite that I work with. I tend to stick with mostly quartz and normally small specimens so I can pass them along to people because they're pretty darn powerful.
Wow.
But I'm really excited to see what other things you can notice about that particular specimen. Because in my mind, it's vibrating like closer to a frequency of maybe, say, water. Crystals and water are pretty similar. And in that way, you would have a very unique piece of almost what looks like Atlantean water from its color scheme. Do you know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah.
Just it's kind of got that kind of vibe to me.
It does. Yeah, because it's almost it's like a aqua. It's like an ocean green. You know what I mean? That kind of green aqua. Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure, for sure. And I mean, as crazy as it gets, that greenish bluish color is also in part the water reflecting the sky. So
Yeah.
it becomes like an even larger piece if you zoom out too far with it, going beyond the galaxy level. But keeping it localized, I think a interesting way to think about crystalline consciousness is that they may be seen perhaps as bones of fifth dimensional consciousness.
Why or how?
So this quartz specimen vibrates at the exact same frequency as all the other quartz specimens.
Correct.
So all the quartz on the entire planet, including the quartz inside of technology, vibrates at this frequency.
Hmm?
So if I enter a peaceful meditative state with this particular stone and frequency and allow myself to cooperate with it,
Hmm.
there's a resonance that's developing.
Yes.
So same as if you choose to focus your energy on the stone that you are working with, there would be a relationship that you're building. It's, in my mind, very important to know what your relationships are about. Be aware of why you keep people or things or situations in focus rather than let them slide out of focus.
Hmm.
So, how would you say you would feel if that stone wanted to be wrapped in wire, or decorated with, or put with a couple others in a statue, or made into a grid? Is that something that you've done before? Any of those activities?
I haven't done any of those, but I was actually planning on planting a frankincense tree on top of this one.
Whoa, that's awesome. Way
Yeah,
cool. I'm
I know.
impressed. I think that's a great idea. I mean, I don't know how the frankincense would interact with that by itself. Maybe you'd want to use other crystals as well, or just that one, but you got the green thumb direction on that. So have you planted any other stones below any other plants? I'm curious.
No, that's why I'm so excited about this one is because I've been looking for the perfect specimen for about 6 months, and I needed one big enough to because I'm a bonsai. I'm gonna put this in a pot, let it bury it maybe just an inch or so with dirt, and stick a cutting right on top of it. and just
Mm.
and when the roots grow around the crystal, I'm just gonna pull it out, brush all the roots off, so you can see the roots clinging on to the crystal. I know. So when you said that, I was like, I'm actually planning on doing some serious crystal work with this thing in the next couple of years, however long it takes. But I actually haven't been into crystals too much, man. I haven't done crystal grids.
Uh,
I made my own organite pyramid maybe like 6 7 years ago, and
uh.
I kind of moved on from the crystal. I've always liked it. I loved rocks as a kid. I would beg my
Right.
dad to take me mining for gemstones. There's a bunch of places in California where you can just show up and
Hmm.
mine your own gemstones and shit like that. But
Way
yeah, I
sweet, way
haven't.
sweet. Well, here's a simple way to develop a relationship if you want to get close with quartz itself.
Uh
That
huh.
you take some water and you'd have the quartz in the water.
Uh
And so now you can do an emoto thing and you can express energy to the water if you
huh.
want. But
Uh huh.
more importantly, through physical interaction, the crystal's vibrating the water and the water is vibrating with the crystal.
Mhm.
So from this point, you could put it in moonlight. You could have crystals in just brown rice for a while to cleanse or reset them. Some people bury their crystals and then dig them up later based on lunar or solar cycles. But with
Mm.
this particular crystal in water, I can go like this, and now I'm vibrating at the frequency of the crystal because the crystal is vibrating the frequency of the water. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a pretty simple and straightforward way to start developing a physical relationship with different stones. Now, given that you've got that particular piece, I would not say that you need to put that inside of a giant tote of like, I don't know, bathtub kind of thing. Not necessary. But what you could do is take some time to interact with that stone. Either have your hand on it or have it on your lap or make it part of your vibrational frequency with some
Right.
regularity for a day or two. Maybe,
Uh huh.
2 or 3 times a day, stop, meditate with it, see if it wants to talk with you, see if you want to talk with it, because it could have a lot of pending data. They are also sometimes seen as metaphysical hard drives.
Mhm.
So, what are your thoughts on this?
There's a hard drive. That was why I got into crystals again. Was when I learned how they were using them to store information inside of computers, and so I was thinking, oh shit, they even science is sort of throwing them into their technology to they're using their frequencies in watches because like you just said they vibrate to a certain frequency, so since it's repetitive in every quartz everywhere they can use them to keep time basically. It's like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
there's got to be something, man. I'm thinking, and as above, I'm like, all right, if it's doing that with time, it's consistent, it's programming things. There's got to be a way where I can do it to myself, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Plus, there's the crystal skulls and Indiana Jones and stuff like that,
Uh-huh.
storing information. That's a
Woo.
If you have
Mm-hmm.
some gems for us on that, I would love to hear your thoughts
Okay, for sure. We
on
can
the
dive that
crystals
direction
more.
and towards the emerald tablets as well. But I want to make, kind of build
Oh
a bridge
yeah.
together because I think this would be a way to link some things. So I want to take a second to breathe and kind of ground reset so we can establish some good foundational root work. Because I want to ask you, what do you think or know of or have an opinion of about the term indigos?
Indigo is I don't know. It's starseed based, and they were showing up in the '80s as a sort of catalyst for humanity, um,
Okay, yeah, 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 like a system buster.
like a system buster that started off a little more with it than your average folk. A little easier to either remember
Okay,
or
so would you say that there's a comment about natural resonance of the crown chakra? Or
yeah,
okay, cool. I'm just trying to build common ground so we can move forward.
yeah. Exactly. I'm there. That's where I'm at.
Okay, okay. Well, I'd say that there's a sense of intuition, and I know a lot of people have used the term indigo a whole lot. It's one of the closer to pop culture than some of the other terms as far as star seeds go, and all
Mhm.
that kind of metaphysical conversation in this direction that we're pursuing. But indigo is also connected to the idea of a crystal. There's like indigo children and crystal children and rainbow children. Are you familiar with these terms?
Rainbow Children, Crystal Children's kind of new for me, and I've heard it, but I don't know much about it.
Okay. Well, what do you know about rainbow children? Trying to build common ground first.
Yeah. Rainbow Children being the same thing as Indigo Children. I actually don't know the difference. I just know that there's sort of a new term for these starseed people who are here doing their thing, and the only way I've been able to separate them is indigo children seem to have been this sort of 70s, 80s, rainbows like 90s, early 2000s, and crystal seems to be a new wave. Is that close or?
Okay, it's close, but according to some maps, there is a form of legend that would say that the crystals are actually between the indigos and the rainbows.
Okay, as far as timeline when they're
So,
appearing.
in vibrational resonance, because in my mind, time
Okay.
and space are completely relative.
Uh-huh.
So, indigo frequency would be assumedly after some kind of third eye frequency, assumedly after some kind of throat frequency, if it's following that kind of metaphorical stance. So, it'd be coming from a heart centered or a root centered on the lower levels or deeper planes. But after the indigo, where would you go?
You would go to the crown, quartz, crystal.
Crystal. Right. Clarity, pure translucence. So, in my mind, the separation would be indigos were sort of the system busters who knew how it was supposed to be,
Uh-huh.
but they still had a script of how it was supposed to be. Whereas crystals just kind of acted like things were the way they were supposed to be. Like there's no natural resistance. There's sort of a resonance with flow itself. So it's kind of like there's a predisposed relationship with consciousness that not everybody has. And if this is a
Uh-huh.
relationship of adversity, this could be seen as an indigo kind of relationship of like a friend or a resonating tone that you connect with while maintaining yourself and your lucidity as an identity. Moving towards some kind of, and this is all people's different interpretations, so it's not like writ law by any means.
Yeah.
Crystals would be people who are functioning as though things are going to work and things just kind of work. So they're not necessarily so focused on breaking the system. They're more just the old soul that flows with everything and everything kind of falls into place around them.
Ooh, I like that.
Okay, for sure. Now, rainbow would be that kind of next level of flow relationship where all of their centers could be seen as active and working when in harmony and in resonance at the same time. So it's like all of the selves are on top of each other working together from root to crystal. And that would mean that that person is expressing a kind of multifaceted form of relation to the universe around them, rather than somebody who's acting only out of survival mode or only out of feeling mode. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about this?
Um, I well, my first thought is why is there a difference? I guess are they coming from different places? Is that why one manifests as crystal, or
Okay,
is it like a,
I'd say it's a little
huh?
more arbitrary than that. Like, what makes the difference between an A and an A sharp in music?
Just rising up the scale?
Ding. So these are just different ways to refer to ranges up a scale.
Okay.
If you want to ascend in your consciousness or ascend in a craft or get better at an activity, it's a lot easier if you're around people who have a higher level of skill than you.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If you don't
Yeah.
have those kind of people around, it's not as though you can't get better. You would just have to choose to teach yourself to get better. And that means usually innovative novelty.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to talk about these duper heady ideas with any form of lucidity would imply that there's a causal relationship to the information and someone's experience. So if I talk to somebody and say, hey, you kind of feel like an indigo child, and they go, oh, you see me, like they feel it and they have that as sort of a self label or that's part of their residual self image, that
Uh-huh.
means that we've established a common plane rather than being like,
Yeah.
oh, you look like you're, you know, from Kentucky. Okay, well, that's a different sort of range of experience, but it's still building a connection. And so all these bridges and connections could be seen as relationships, and we have relationships with all of the levels of consciousness from mineral, or technically below mineral consciousness is the consciousness of the void, which is kind of like never ending story, the nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a thing. It's very
Yeah.
nice. It's very nice and very kind if you take the time to get to know it, but most people don't want to go that slow.
Uh-huh.
Then golems would be seen as individuals who are expressing root consciousness and kind of acting in a physical sense. And usually a golem protector or guardian is in orbit closely around a crystal. So crystals tend to have small bubbles of influence, where indigos tend to go in and find a level of influence and then like raise the bar and raise the expectations.
Uh-huh.
Whereas sometimes rainbows just go into a place and blow the hinges off because that's how they function.
And the crystals, I'm trying to memorize all the definitions for each from now. And the crystal is someone who is the one that floats through life and things seem to fall in place around them instead of sort of butting heads with things to change them. Is that how the difference is then?
I
Is
would
that the
say
common
it's,
ground?
yeah, it's like the opacity of consciousness is just softer
Mm-hmm.
because they're still in a flow state, but they're not necessarily high vibration. They're so high of a vibration that they can adjust their opacity, so they're not necessarily subject to the vibrations around them. You follow me?
Yeah.
Rather than a rainbow is
Yeah.
the kind of person who enters a room and like the whole room changes. Just by them being in the room, like you can feel all the planes are shifted. But this would
Mm.
also expand into a conversation about auras or different levels of aura fields and what they're for and what you can do with them. So I like a practice called auric packing, which is where you just basically take your hands and you focus on bringing your energy in and like pull your energetic bubble towards yourself and pack your aura to the inside so that you're able to digest your immediate field. It's like if everybody around you has a +5 to HP, it'd be really good for you to take that +5 HP and give it back to yourself sometimes, right?
Mm.
Same deal.
Mm. Just for those of you checking in right now, we're sort of talking crystal children or crystal human, rainbow, and crystal, rainbow, and indigo. And just running a baseline so we're all coming from the same spot as we talk about things.
Defining star seeds.
Defining star seeds, and we got people talking. Hello, Malatsa. I'm pronouncing that right. Welcome everybody. Thanks for tuning in. It's late on a Friday night. Happy to be here. Happy that you're sharing your vibes with us.
Gratitude, gratitude. Happy to be
Dude,
here as well. And
everyone,
now,
yeah, everyone say thank you for Richie showing up. Thanks for coming. It's late as hell over there where you are. It was like midnight or something like that.
11:40, not bad.
Oh, you're only an hour ahead. Okay,
Yep,
nice. I
for
thought you
sure, for sure. Doing decent, doing decent. I like that
nice.
comment that was made about shielding your auric on a regular field. So there's a thing called energetic hygiene.
Energetic hygiene.
You hear
There
me?
you go. I like that.
I mean, there's also digital hygiene, which means that you're aware of the content that you're posting on the digital space. But energetic hygiene is something that you can think about how to keep yourself in balance and in flow. Like if you were a chia pet, how would you take care of yourself? If you were a bonsai tree, how would you take care of yourself? If
Mm-hmm.
you were a crystal in a jar that's growing, how would you take care of yourself? If you were a hamster,
Mm-hmm.
how would you follow?
Yeah, absolutely.
Word, word, word. So it's fun. You can research about it. A couple different people have talked about auric cleansing and different kinds of energetic and usually in reference to energy healers, subtle art hygiene to make sure that you're grounded and still good. If you work with energetic or subtle healing as a practice and a healing modality,
Mm.
sometimes those people can get a little uprooted. Sometimes by working with people.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what about someone like in my space who's posting a lot of stuff and interacting a lot with people? I'm not healing anybody, but I definitely feel like I need a break from this shit every once in a while. You know what I mean? It's like can
For
be
sure, for
over.
sure.
Is that the digital cleansing that you're talking about?
Close. We're going to talk about digital detox first.
Uh-huh.
Because the digital detox is going to stabilize your digital consciousness.
Uh-huh.
And once you have stable digital consciousness, you'll have good digital hygiene.
Uh,
And after you have good digital hygiene, then you can work on digital etiquette. You follow me?
I follow. It's way more in depth than I had anticipated, but I definitely follow.
Well, one step at a time. Take it one step at a time. I think it's important to focus on the things that are important and focus on the things that are exciting. And then
Mm,
all the supplementary information will kind of come into the loop.
mm,
So
mm.
I'm going to send this blessing waves. I know I mentioned it before, kind of before we started, but this is blessed waves of health to your plant partners.
Thank you,
Bring
brother.
this as
Thank
an
you.
offering and tribute.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The orange too. Yes. Okay. I have a question. So my other question can kind of be like you're talking different notes. I understand that, but Um, you have the three. What type of person exists outside of that? This is a question. You might have even heard me
Hundreds,
bring this. It's
thousands.
gotta, you just gotta be hundreds or thousands. And
Kombucha, bless.
like, oh, nice. Lately, I've been thinking, like, because I was on the Indigo thing, like, oh, maybe I'm Indigo. I'm into this stuff. That's got to be at least sign one if there was ever a sign. And then
Right.
lately, I've been thinking, well, like, I love Earth. I love the planet. I love the
Yes,
animals. I love it here. Like, can I not be, an indigo Earth that, you know what I mean? Like,
for
that's
sure.
just all Earth. And I can be like, hey, I'm in the galaxy ZYX, but I'm a Earth child. You know what I mean? Not a Arcturian child, but a
Would you
Earth.
consider yourself having perhaps some good Gaian origin?
I've been just because I love nature so much and growing things so much and just being out in it, I was like, maybe there's got to be something else there too, guy in origin, like you're talking about, you know what? But no one ever says that. It's always star seed. It's never
Mm,
earth seed.
totally, totally. And Earthseed energy is definitely a thing.
Okay, that was my question. Is earth seed energy a thing? Is it young? Is it old? Is it? Are
Ooh, it's
we?
pretty old. I'm tempted to dive into my YouTube archive and to throw you. I think this dude's called King of Neptune or something, but I'll get you connected with somebody who's speaking on the Earthseed side.
Yeah,
So,
please. Yeah, I would
for
like
sure,
that a
for
lot.
sure. I think to establish some good foundation so that we can have the conversation with a trajectory that's lucid,
Uh-huh.
I want to think about 0 point energy real quick.
Okay.
So, gonna take a canvas, a two-dimensional canvas for painting or for drawing or for arting on of whatever kind. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
So in this two-dimensional canvas is experience, we can add a third dimension if we wanted to like sculpt it or like curve it or like bend it around something.
Mm-hmm.
But right now it's two-dimensional. Okay. Now it could become one-dimensional and just become a horizontal line.
Mm-hmm.
So from that horizontal line or the plane of X consciousness, anything in Y consciousness would be intersecting in its reality trajectories. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so now there's maybe dimension X for all the things thinking of dimension X, and then dimension Y for all the things thinking of dimension Y, and then
Uh,
dimension Z for all the things thinking dimension Z. Okay, now we're going to say that there's also dimension T. Dimension T, having T. Dimension T is time. So as soon as we spindle time into the equation, consciousness discovers a way or creates a way or out of necessity has a way to perceive itself.
mm-hmm.
So we're all fingers of the hand of consciousness. Arguably, crystalline forms could be seen as like the nails and bones and teeth of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And then the plants could be seen as like the muscles and the sinew. And then the creatures could be seen as like the digestion system and the complex organs. Where the human faculty would be the heart and the experience of the mind. So the higher dimensional planes would be when people plug into arguably something like an oversoul or some kind of consciousness that's bigger than themselves. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
talk to somebody who's on a rugby team and they speak for the rugby team, like yeah or no, or they like use that voice properly, it's good for the team rather than people, misusing the authority that they're granted in whatever depth of dimension you want to take that to. So when people decide to define their own consciousness as saying, I am an indigo, or I am a crystal, or I am a rainbow, or I am a starseed, or I am a Pleiadian, or Orion, or Sirian, or Arcturian, or you don't hear very many people claiming to be Zeta or Gray, but someone
No,
could
no.
arguably, like it's a thing.
They're out there. I've seen them.
For sure. I mean, there's also people who are on the druidry path and talking about being a resonant of the trees, and they represent different frequencies of the forest, like Lorax style. You got different
Uh-huh.
kind of animal shamans or people who have totem spirits that that their frequency resonates with, and they have
Uh-huh.
pairings and consciousness relationships with maybe the entity of all of the alligators or just one special alligator. I mean, everybody's different.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
It gets super heady if you think about bug shamans, but I try not to dive into that world too much.
The
I got a
bug?
wonderful friend. Yeah, a priestess of the bees. Actually, I guess she's more of a queen of the bees. Yeah. You ever need a swarm, you let me know.
I Bees follow me everywhere. There's one in the house next to my greenhouse. It's been in the house for a good 2 years, in the wall of the house. We're friends now. The bees,
Nice.
I dream about bees all the time. The bees follow everything, always flying in the house. I make beeswax candles. I can do
Okay, are you
amazing.
consuming bee pollen?
Not right now, but I do. I probably
Okay.
have it in a few months, but yeah, I consume bee pollen.
When you do, what's your serving size look like?
I usually just throw a pinch in my fingers with a glass of water. Nothing too crazy. Under my tongue, actually. We call it sublingual or something like that.
Yep, yep,
Just a
yep.
pinch under the
Sublingual.
tongue.
Okay, for sure. Nice. If you can start measuring that and finding out if it's teaspoon or tablespoon and start dialing that in, you can begin to have metrics for what it's affecting your body like. And I know many people who use bee pollen in the winter season, so when the spring comes, they have the immunity of all of the pollen inside of the bees. So
Oh,
they're kind of
nice.
building like a field relationship with the areas around them. And throw a comment or throw a response to one of the comments. I do private coaching and consultation and direction. So if anybody wants to schedule a free 15 minutes to just chat and to just talk about things and to find a direction, you can let me know because there's people saying that they want to kind of know what they want to resonate with, but can't really ask in this time space because we got like a delay and I'm chatting with you, which I'm still figuring
Yeah.
out. I think, Keith, you got, I at least feel from you like a Sirius C. It's a gamma Sirius, which is pretty rare to find, but it's pretty neat. Combined with super heavy Earthseed Gaian waves, sort of on the Neptunian bent. I think you've got some water energy, but I think that there's some kind of forest consciousness, like deep earthen forest consciousness within the spirit that you're working with. But I don't know if you go elfish or gnomish or dwarfish or, I mean, everybody's got their own frequencies, and those are all metaphors for different kinds of expressions, if you follow what I'm saying.
Yes, but on some dimension, does it manifest as gnome energy, as elf energy? You know what I mean? Or because I'm sure there's the wishy-washy side, but also the concrete side that it manifests as, right? You know?
Right. And the concreticity, to use the term like neuroplasticity, could be developed by you seeing a relationship, by seeing that maybe a person really does feel like a mermaid. So if they spend time in water and build a relationship with having different kinds of water, salted or unsalted, in jars around their space, they could feel more grounded there. They could start integrating different parts of the lore of different
Mm-hmm.
mermaids or merfolk and find solace within themselves because they naturally connect with the story archetype. But to say
Yeah.
that somebody is or is not like, you're a werewolf, like, I don't know about that. But maybe somebody says that they have a relationship with the sacred wolf or coyote, one of the tricksters. And that means
uh,
that you have a different bead on the reality that you're in, including all of the plant messengers, all the mineral messengers, all of animal, and et cetera, et cetera. You follow?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Way cool, way cool.
Nice. I do have the Starseed story though, and it was
Starseed.
it was
Hmm.
Arcturian. Have you heard the story I gave the spiel? I've
No,
given it
but I'm all
like,
about it. I want to hear this.
all right, I'll tell you the spiel. Sorry if I tell the story all the time. I'm like, do they want to hear it again? Anywho,
Say it again.
um, I was 12 and I wrote a short story about me and my buddy, and I named him Mesheath, and I named myself Arcturus. And yeah, it was pretty cool. But fast forward, that was when I was 12, 13. Fast forward to I was maybe like 28. This is recently.
Hmm.
And I'm telling my friend, and she's just balls deep in star seeds, and she just like blows me away with the knowledge she has. And we're talking Arcturians and whatnot. And I was like, yo, I was a kid and I wrote a story. I named myself Arcturus. I wish I had that story. Like, it
Hmm.
would be so cool. I wrote it on a floppy disk, but God knows where it's at. I swear to God, the next day my dad texts me and he goes, "Hey, I found this floppy disk in a box in the garage. Is it yours?" And he takes a picture and it just says story in my little like 12-year-old handwriting. And I was like, "Yo, like print it for me. Yes, it's mine. Print it, see if it works." And the next day he said, "Here, I have it. I'll give it to you." And it was a story, and it was crazy, dude. Like, that thing was in a box for 15, 16, 17 years, and then
Hmm.
within 24 hours of bringing it up, my dad finds it. So that's where I was like, all right. I was like, all right, I'll give it some serious thought, like, how fucking
Oof.
wild is
Nice.
that? Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah.
So, before diving into what I know about the Arcturus, because I'd be super down to share notes about Arcturian energy, I want to throw a little bit to the Sirius energy, because you seriously mentioned that that was something that gave you that kind of frequency experience. So,
Uh-huh.
what do you know of the topic of Sirius?
Not much. Not
Okay.
much.
Recommended reading on the Dogon tribe?
Oh, okay. So then I know that. They found the star hundreds of years ago, right? And we just found it recently with telescopes, and they're like, the Dogon got dropped off by Sirius. That's their story, is it?
Yeah,
More or less.
I got a lot of stories. I don't always link them directly to the culture they're coming from, so I may be mixing some lore from other places, including Atlantean and Lemurian knowledge.
Uh-huh.
But there is a story that says, and it's all about finding the parts of the story that work, and that's the gold that you panned, and the rest of the stuff is just the dirt. It's okay, put it back in the stream of consciousness.
Uh-huh.
The dolphin like consciousness functioned as a sort of a courier or, let's see, chauffeur of the spiritual frequency of the the Gaia seed, which would be different than Earth seed, because Earth would be a development of Gaian consciousness.
Mm,
Pre-Gaian could be seen as a biota, and that would be like bacterial consciousness, like the biology of the Earth as a thing altogether, and then
I
it kind
see.
of begins to sift itself as you put on a finer and finer combing lens. Through different kinds of rituals and ceremonies, it could be communicated that Syrians or the Sirius frequency brought human ish energy to Earth to kind of give us a good playground and university to learn and share and teach and dance with each other. But they knew that they weren't the only ones who were developing, let's say, neighborhoods or families inside of this giant dojo of a place.
Hmm.
Because we're all reflecting different parts of each other back to each other. And there's some people who are super serious about everything. They're just like the most serious. They don't know how to talk in a not serious way. Everything is the seriousest it could ever be. And then there are other people who like don't give a frack about diddly doodly. It's like they lost the serious circuit or the take things for real circuit. Or the like, could you like chill with me and hang out for a minute rather than always being on your phone or far away? And then there's some people who are really dedicatedly, creatively inspired to be themselves.
Hmm.
So the first one, super serious. I would consider that Sirius A or Sirian A, Alpha Sirius energy. The kind of Sirius that doesn't really care unless it has to.
Hmm.
The kind of person that works if the boss is around, but if the boss ain't around, they kind of kick it down to like 20 or 30 maybe.
Uh-huh.
That would be expressions of the various form of Sirius B, Sirius Beta. But they got to have a relationship as a collective beta cluster in relationship with the alpha so that they can keep orbits that are healthy and balanced. But Sirius C is the innovator, the outlier, the gamma waves, the difference makers. So that would be how I identify your energy imprint in relationship to my experience, not only viewing your content, but also interacting with you now for this second time.
Hmm.
What do you think of what I say?
I th- well, I don't know what I think, but I do have a question.
Yes.
I have a bunch of different personas, you know what I mean? Like I have my online persona, and I would guess that we would have it would be different if we spent a lot of time together, you know what I mean? Like how I would come through. And so I guess what I'm thinking is, um could there be a blend, you know, because there's times when I can be super serious, and there's times in my
Uh,
life where I
we are all
only
hybrid children, yes.
uh
You hit the
hybrid
nail on the
by
head. Hybrid by design.
okay.
Hybrid by design. We built these vessels for ourselves.
Okay.
So we designed the perfect time today's reality suit to enter into for the perfect form of consciousness that we want to experience, as is our soul contract or karmic agreement, or however you want to interpret that. But yeah, I'd say that there's a lot to be said of. I don't interact with Arcturians too much because I tend to think of Arcturus energy as like very focused, very dedicated, like a horse or like a centaur, like going places,
Mhm.
doing things on crazy adventures. But the range is huge. Got a giant heart, four legs, and can run for days. Holy crap, man! Like I can barely drive for a couple days straight before I get fatigued. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So in that kind of experience, I think that we're all like crystals. We're a composite of different minerals
Yeah.
and we're vibrating together in a kind of uh, chaotic catalyst of avant-garde living art.
Nice, well put.
Yes.
Well
Gratitude.
put. So I'll hit you with this then. I had that phenomenal Arcturian story, right?
Take it?
Um,
Yeah.
but I bought We the Arcturians book and I watched Arcturian videos and it's like these people tend to be this way, and it resonated, but it didn't resonate. I couldn't even finish the. It took me like three separate times to finish the We the Arcturians book because it just was not resonating, man. I was like, this book is just.
Dang.
I was like,
I,
they're
I,
talking about nonsense. They should be asking them, some crazy questions. It just seemed pointless. You know what I mean? So, what would you say to an experience like that? Like that
you're
I'm.
looking at a difference between Arcturus A, Arcturus B, and Arcturus C. Now, beyond alpha, beta, and gamma, there's also sigma, epsilon, and a few others. These are just also measurements of types of consciousness. So
Mhm.
it may be that you're hearing the beta Arcturians talk about themselves, and they're totally like talking from the couch, and it doesn't make any sense. And like you're in the field gardening, and you're like, "The fuck are you guys talking about? Reality is not like that at all." You know what I mean? That would just be my interpretation of it, because I
uh-huh.
mean, we also got a bunch of other terms that we could define if you wanted to build a palette. I've got probably 8 different terms of galactic origin that I like to talk about, but I also highly correlate these with animals. And sometimes I don't use any outer space terminology. I use metaphors of local creatures and consciousness, or sometimes plant consciousness. Like, you really remind me of a willow tree, or you're a very oak-like person.
Hmm.
But there's also the term like this person is the salt of the earth. If
Hmm.
that's not a mineral consciousness metaphor, I don't know what is.
I know, right?
That person shines like a ruby. These are all
Uh-huh.
terms. So the novelty, I think, is only limited by our intention. And the most pitfally area of conversing this way is not defining our terms and not having an intention for the conversation.
Hmm.
Because if to you indigo means one thing and to me indigo means a different thing, then when we talk about indigos, we could be having separate conversations with each other.
Yeah.
However, we hold the phone for a minute, like a TED talk, define our terms.
Mm.
Then moving
Is that why
forward,
they do
we
that?
partially because it's backed by the scientific community and they need to have common language.
Yeah, that makes
Because
sense.
if you're introducing somebody to a term that they've never heard before, you need a clear definition that is
Yeah.
unmistakably a definition without using the word to define itself, like so many
Yeah.
people are apt to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're all synthesis of maybe different colors. You could look at it as like color bodies. Like, I don't know if when you were in school, there was like overhead transparencies.
What do you mean?
There's like an overhead projector. Yeah, like a box. It's got like a light in it, and the light
Yeah.
shines up to a little mirror, and the mirror reflects out, and it just
Uh-huh.
throws on the wall like an old
Uh-huh.
school projector kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Come
So
on.
maybe you got like 2 or 3 different layers, 2 or 3 different doshas, if you want to use Ayurvedic terms, or like
Uh-huh.
different bodies that you can like overlay on each other. And
Uh-huh.
so by learning to interact with the different ranges of your experience and separating root activities versus maybe compassionate activities, because it's important to do things out of love. But if you aren't grounded in your experience of being yourself, then even if you're acting out of love, it's going to be kind of legless. It's not going to be able to
Mm-hmm.
stand of its own accord.
Mm-hmm. That's worth noting. I've never thought of that before.
Very good. I'm just chopping
Yeah.
through things, trying to figure out where to trim and where to prune.
Yeah. It's it's I don't know, I guess it's easy to just say act out of love and act out of kindness, but the whole no, I've been doing this might be a different topic, but I had a
Very good.
conversation with a friend the other day and she was telling me about I guess you could call it dark night of the soul stuff. And
Okay.
seeing your triggers and using them as mirrors and like everyone says, why does this upset you? And like instead of running from it, like why are you triggered by that? Like I hear that all the time, but for some reason something clicked when she told me, and I was like, that was just probably 3 days ago. I swear to God, I feel like my life has changed in the past couple of days. Just the depth of who I am and why did I do the things I do, and like why certain things make me happy has just been becoming so much more apparent by like doing this sort of dark night of the soul, looking at your darknesses and seeing why they're darknesses or why you're triggered or why you say I'm unsuccessful, so I can't give my child a bunch of things. This is an example I was thinking of. And then the question to that was, well, would it be the worst thing if you can't buy your son every toy he's always wanted? Like, would that make you less of a father? Sort of things. And it's, I guess it's just been to address what you're saying about doing things with love, even if it's not a true self-expression. Is the self-expression has been a side effect that I didn't realize would happen from shining light onto these issues that I would normally gloss over.
Hmm.
And so that's why when you said you can do things out of love and kindness, but even if it's not a true self-expression, it doesn't show up as how you would want it to or expect it to feel acting out of love and kindness. Am I making sense?
Totally. That the expectation isn't clearly defined, so it can never be fulfilled.
Expectation isn't clearly. Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
hearing you. I'm
yeah,
hearing you. For sure.
yeah.
I'm gonna build some metrics real quick, see if we can build some more dimensions in this.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna make a range, and this range is gonna be legititude.
Legititude.
High levels of legititude and low levels of legititude. Can you think of
Uh-huh.
an example of either?
What do you mean by legititude? Like legitimate? Is that where you're getting it from?
I would say, yeah, legitimate, like how legit somebody is.
Oh, okay.
Like how legit their attitude is. How consistently you can count on them on being legit.
Uh-huh. So what am I thinking of?
What would be a high legitude individual or a low legitude individual or traits of somebody like that?
Okay.
Hmm.
Someone who you can expect to give you a straight answer every time you ask me something.
I dig it. That would be high legitude
High legititude, yeah.
for sure. And
Like
then low legitude would be
would be someone who tells you, I guess, tells you what you want to hear. Not necessarily like a bad person that's not straightforward, but just someone who's kind of like
hmm,
it's just not just telling you what you want to hear to kind of make the situation better. So you can't necessarily rely on them for a good opinion on something because they might sugarcoat it or
hmm, hmm.
you know what I mean.
Absolutely obscure the truth of the message to try to soften the blow, maybe.
Yeah, that type of thing. I say that because um, working in music a lot, I get that. It's like, hey, what do you think about this song? It's like, oh, it sounds great. It's like that tells me nothing. Like,
Dang.
what do like
Right, for
what?
sure. And
How
when
do
people
you
ask me,
feel
I hear
about?
about songs. Usually I'm saying, the space sounds like this. I like the effects on these different instruments. The channels that are here are this way, and the composition collectively I feel about this. Also gonna mention if there's any like highs or lows in the song, like a cool break or breakdown, or some
Uh
kind of instrument or texture I've never heard before.
huh.
But if it's not like an actual visceral bit of feedback that is longer than a postcard or a post-it note,
Uh huh.
they're not actually hearing from me. They're just hearing from my autopilot.
Hmm.
So I hear you on the musical side. Creative arts can be really tricky to find a community of people who want to talk because there has to be darkness and there has to be light. So if you want to be friends with somebody when they're in their lunar body or when they're working with their own light within, rather than when they're solar body and they're working in their light on the outside,
Uh
you got
huh.
to let people have their alone space. You got to let people do their own thing and don't hold some kind of unreasonable expectation because for some obscure narrative you developed a thing that said that this person has this trait or this reality without actually knowing that about them.
Mm.
So,
It's easy to do that, man.
for sure, disappointments are only ointments for expectations.
Uh-huh. Damn.
I got that from a song. It's an Anhata Heart song. Art is the best outlet. It's a great tune. I highly recommend it.
Art is the best. I'll type it in. You beat it. Art is the best outlet.
That's it.
All right, I got that in there. But yeah, so that would be my answer for longitude and
Legitude.
legitude, degrees of
For sure.
legitude.
Okay. So
Sorry, a
now,
straight tutor and a
hmm
wishy-washer.
okay, now we got to develop another plane of measurement real quick, and this is going to be authenticality.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
That's
So
the big.
somebody or traits of high authenticality and then of low authenticality. What you got?
High authenticality. Consistency for
Hmm.
high authenticality.
Okay. And then low authenticality.
Oh, well, maybe. Because I guess you can be consistently bad, and that wouldn't be a high authenticality. But no, not no. Because I guess when you tell me
Mm,
authentic, it's someone that I can rely on to be whatever they're gonna
uh,
be, even if it's good
uh,
or bad. Like, I just want to know what. Like, let me know. Are you with me or are
hmm
you against me, kind of thing. So I
Totally.
would still put consistency on the high, and the low would just be someone that's, I guess, unreliable,
Huh. Not very authentic.
not very authentic.
For sure, for sure. So I'd say maybe obscured or undefined.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
for sure, for sure. So now we got like an arbitrary chart that we've made.
Uh-huh.
And so there could be somebody with high legititude and high authenticality,
Mm-hmm.
but there could also be somebody with high legititude and low authenticality.
Correct.
Okay, now you could have low legititude and low authenticality,
Yes.
or low legititude and high authenticality,
Yes.
right? So where would, just for archetypes to kind of throw a couple in there, Captain Jack Sparrow.
Captain Jack Sparrow would have a high consistency, so he'd be high in the authenticness,
Yeah, I agree, personally, for sure.
but he's a damn scallywag, and you can never trust what he's saying. So the legititude would be lacking on.
For sure. So now there's also another plane that we can define, but this is going to be like the brain popper because as soon as you get into three-dimensional charts, we kind of have a different beat on life.
Uh-huh.
So the next one, just to give depth to the conversation, could be seen as trustworthiness. And trustworthiness is defined from you, your trustworthiness. How much do you trust the person, place, or thing or experience? It's not how does it appear, how does it seem, how do other people tell you. It's your personal relationship with it. You follow me?
More on the intuitive side, you're saying?
Right. I think intuitively you wouldn't trust Captain Jack Sparrow, not because he's kind of a scallywag, but because he's a character in a movie. And you know he's not a person. You know what I mean?
Fair. I
So
was
you
in it,
could,
so I would have been like, I trust the guy, dude. I was not really.
for sure. So in that way, you can trust in the story that he's presenting,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and then in the other forms of the that particular franchise that Jack Sparrow's involved in, you could see the character arc being consistently built. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you can trust the character to act in certain ways, and maybe your perspective of legititude or authenticality changes over time. Now, break this free from the screen. As soon as we interact with somebody in the real world or something in the real world, our neurology, our natural autonomic intelligence is measuring all these things: legititude, authenticality,
Mm-hmm.
trustworthiness,
Mm-hmm.
unmentioned. And we just kind of move through reality making these subtle adjustments and subtle agreements with the projection of the world around us. Is this making
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Mm-hmm.
To define ways of community, ways of common unity, terms like indigo, starseed, rainbow, crystal, all these can be effective to group people together of the same mind. Just like if you have a bunch of sports players together and you want them to do a planned action, you have to name that planned action this or
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now we're going to blitz. Unless you have everybody on the same page about what a blitz is, that could get kind of weird.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Is that what
now
you're saying is part of the role of having indigo, crystal, rainbow?
the pioneering conversation which you and I are having right now that is familiarizing individuals with specific forms of definitions of these words
Uh-huh.
is creating a space for a more expansive dialogue in a communicative sense of community.
I see.
So now if people want to bring it up in dialogue and forms using what we're talking about now,
I
there's
see.
a common ground.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to think like, oh yeah, well, I'm from Pleiades and I'm royalty, so that means that on this plane I can do what the fuck I want. And it's like, bruv, really? So nothing against Pleiades. Much love, for sure. In my mind, it's like the Pleiadian galaxy and the Pleiadian cluster frequency. I think about it as almost all birds, avian, if it was going to have the creature resonance.
Uh-huh.
So that also gets into like angelic winged beings, and oh, what are they called? The Sphinx. There's a Sphinx with wings. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Anyway, does the Sphinx naturally have wings?
The Sphinx is a lion, isn't it?
Yeah, part lion, part person.
It's
I think
got
it has
wings.
wing. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think you're right.
That's
It's
very good work on the mythology. No worries. But also,
not-
isn't the Pleiades galaxy like a bunch of sisters?
Yeah,
Nice.
it's quote unquote seven sisters, but there's a ton of them.
Word. So if you ever interacted with a family of seven sisters, you're not really going to be able to have a relationship communicating with one of them without communicating with all of them.
Uh-huh.
Because there's like this intuitive intelligence that they're all going to share, and they're communicating with you, and
Yeah.
they're communicating with each other.
And they're forming ideas with each other, influencing with each other, and then speaking to you with the community's influence of the single and yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So now this can be pivoted for a second and mentioned as mad shoutouts to an author named Derek Bros. He's got some really awesome work. You like a lot of it as far as agregoric and permaculture and sustainability focused. But the Freedom Cell Network is something that he's worked on. And a Freedom Cell is 8 people who all collaborate in the form of meeting Maslow's hierarchy of needs as a community. And then you have that particular group of 8 people interact as a unit with other groups of 8 people.
What is this?
Freedom Cell. It's the Freedom Cell Network that's pioneered by a guy named Derek Bros and a couple others. He ran for mayor in Houston this past cycle. He's got a weekly radio show on KBFT. It's the public radio. I don't exactly remember what the call sign is, but they're some super dope dudes. They got some cool things going on. But
Look up Freedom Cell, you guys. You'll find it. I'm sure.
theconsciousresistance.com. I want to type that in here to make sure I say it right, but that's where you can get all their stuff. So
Not
theconsciousresistance.com. Yep. Nope. Burner. Theconsciousresistance.com. Yeah, that's what it says. Derp derp derp.
I see it.
They got some really cool stuff. If you go into the books
Oh,
section,
the pyramid of power coming soon. Eyeball on top of it. You guys. This looks like quite the interesting thing.
right? If you go into the book section and you go into the book called "How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State,"
Yeah.
you can get a free download PDF. Also, the holistic self-assessment, finding freedom in the edge of confusion.
I'm going to post this in the chat room for you guys. Alchemy, what's cracking, man? Nice to see you here. I was hoping you would catch this one. I feel like you'd appreciate the dialogue that's going on here. Julie, Corey, welcome everybody. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Everyone, thank Richie for being here as well. Thank you, thank you.
Gratitude, of course. Happy to share time and space and co-create this reality.
But yeah, tell me, sorry to cut you off on the 8 people coming together and acting as a unit to talk to groups of other 8 people. And
Yeah, it's the Freedom Cell Network, which is connected to the Conscious Resistance. So if you go to the Conscious Resistance website, the link that you posted, it'll give you the link to Kratom, Brave Botanicals Kratom. You can get a free ounce of Kratom if you pay shipping.
oh,
Which
that's
is super
right. I
dope.
forgot to write that down last time.
It's in the Conscious Resistance Network webpage. So they super deep dope. They have a Discord as well.
Wait, they have a link on this conscious resistance
Yeah, scroll down halfway down the page.
on about or under
The homepage itself.
the homepage. Whoa, they're on some rabbit hole stuff on this page.
Keep going.
Oh, I see it.
There you go. They got a bunch of authors. Everybody's doing their own thing. So you know the game. It's all about sifting for the nuggets of gold,
Yeah.
and then knowing that you got to have the dirt there so that the fish have something to swim around. Like that's just how it works.
Well put. All right, I got this kratom up. I gotta, cause I can't do the coffee.
Okay. Oh, you got to try mud water.
Mud water.
Yeah, mud water. I got an affiliate code to see if I can get it for you. It's like a chai tea, cacao, reishi, chaga, quadriceps, lime main, turmeric, sea salt, and cinnamon.
Ooh.
Mud water. No hate, no hate. MUDWTR.com.
Oh,
I figured we'd do product plugs sometime this time just because you got to
Yeah,
share the cool tech
but-
with your homies.
plug it, man.
Hmm?
Yeah, wait, just mudwater.com. That's it.
With no A. So WTR. See if I can get this in there. Blow.
Oh, that's not working either. WT
R.com.
WTR.com.
Uh-huh. MUDWTR.com.
Okay.
No underwriting deal yet, so, but there's an affiliate code that you can get so you can share it with your homies and they'll get a discount on it.
Okay, everybody, did you type it in to the chat room?
Dang, I think I got it. Yeah, I typed it in the chat room.
Okay. This is cool,
All
man.
right. So I got you. I figured it out. It's on the inside of their packing box, which is super dope. So if you text MudGang to 71023, you can get your friend $5 off. So everybody can get $5 off from this, and I'll type it in the chat. Got to kind of push their thing because I think deals are good.
And then deals are great. We live off of deals. John Smith's probably asleep by now. Like, I mean, he's on the East Coast Canadian time, I believe. So it's like 2 o'clock over there. He's probably sleeping.
Am I wearing this? I would be all over him.
Oh, that was my. Sorry about that.
You're square. No worries. Cool. So I post that in the chat as well. Sometimes links get nerfed inside of YouTube chats, so I'm never always sure. Never always sure. I don't know. That's the way to say.
Get nerfed. They definitely do. And on the comments too. Okay, I'm gonna sidetrack you.
Take it.
Not sidetrack, just different angle. You brought up crystal grids earlier, and I've never been sold on crystal grids. Can you sell me on crystal grids?
Easy peasy lemon squeeze. You want to take that awesome specimen you got, right?
It's a lovely specimen, man.
All right. Now imagine how a day would pass if that was chilling with you in your living room.
It'd be awesome.
Where?
Just seeing it on the table all day, I'd be like.
Okay. Now what about if you found a way to like put it near your bed and have it like underneath your bed?
I already thought about that, but there's no underneath the bed.
Okay, so what if you took a smaller specimen of either that same type, maybe chipped off a piece if you needed to, after asking if that's okay, or maybe a sliver of another kind of stone, and had that underneath your bed while you had that in the living room? Do you think that the one underneath your bed would resonate with the one in the living room on the dimension of the minerals?
If I had two of the same one in different rooms?
Yeah.
They should.
Right, because they're vibrating at the same frequency because they're expressing the same kind of consciousness. Okay, cool. So what if you had like 2 or 3 rose quartz around that specific specimen? Do you think if you had them at like north and south and east and west, that would interact with the magnetic poles naturally on the planet Earth so that would create a different impact of how your relationship with that mineral is being expressed?
It also should as well, yeah.
Okay. Are you sold on crystal grids yet?
Yeah, and I was like, all right, I see where you're going with this.
Word.
Picking up what you're putting down. No, definitely. Yeah. Definitely.
Check. Next. There's a great book, actually. I'll plug this one too. It's by an individual who I highly respect as a spiritual teacher, an individual named Naha. She runs a group called 22 Teachings. I think she's in California. Yeah, she's in your area, or at least your state. She's got a wonderful book about relating with crystals and channeling crystalline consciousness and talking with them. So I'll pull this up. She also does a lot of tarot reading and things.
All right, so you say channeling crystal consciousness and communicating with it.
Yeah.
It's a mineral consciousness right up, debatably that would be the most dense consciousness mineral, right?
Well, if you want to use physical dimensional resonance as your definition for density, then the only thing that would be denser than that would be elementals, such as fire or water or oil or super viscous things like liquid mercury could be denser.
Oh, I see.
But is that a mineral?
Not necessarily. If it's just mercury, it's just the element then in that case, right? Oh, so that's what you mean by elementals?
Ding, ding, ding. For sure. If you kick on screen share, I can kick over about this everyday healing rituals crystal book, but I just tried to kick the button and it didn't take. So I'll post the link in the chat for it.
Oh man, I thought I allowed you to screen share.
No worries, we figured this out.
So you want me to click the link and then screen share it? Is that what you're saying?
Sounds great. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
All right, let me pull up. Where did you post it at? Into the Zoom or into the?
It's in the Zoom, and now it's going into the YouTube. Blah, blah, blah.
Close that off.
I say the size of the crystal is definitely relative to reply to a comment in the chat. The size of the crystal would be relative to the utilization that you want with it. A lot of people like wands or scepters. Some people like pocket crystals, pocket rocks. Other people want like an amethyst tower that's taller than them so they can kind of like feel that kind of, you know what I mean? The tarot, I like the tarot as well. I'm hesitant on divination of sorts, but I learned the tarot, the Kabbalah, and color magic like all at the same time. So my brain's kind of wired differently than other people.
All right. So the everyday crystal rituals, is that what you want me to show them?
Yep, that would be the book that I'm recommending to you and to everyone else if you want to dive into some wonderful text about crystal consciousness. And like, it'll tell you.
Check it out, everybody. Everyday crystal rituals, healing practices for love, wealth, career, and home. How about for summoning gnomes to come run around your garden? That's what I would like to do.
Dang, well, you could probably get the health of the garden and then put that together and then develop a ceremony to talk to the earth spirits and then dial that in to communicating specifically with saying what it is you want the gnomes to do. Because if you're just trying to create like a hangout zone and like a playground for them, all you'd have to do is create an appropriate space for they to get the, Fey folk playtime on.
Yes, all of that.
For sure, for sure.
Do people bet? Could you bury a crystal grid?
Sure.
It would be cool to bury a crystal grid, like say under your greenhouse or something like that, so it's kind of out of the way, but still generating the sort of some.
So to me, this is beginning to sound like some of the early orgonite research because it's finding the vibration of different kinds of densities of material. So as a specimen of orgonite, this would be one that I happen to have around me. It's not mine by any means, but it's kind of expressing itself here. It's got a copper coil inside of a pyramid shape with a couple different layers. Looks like golden flakes. Looks like some quartzy bits, some cloudy stuff, might be moonstone. And then something darker on the bottom. I want to say maybe a black tourmaline, maybe obsidian, I'm not sure. But the idea behind orgonite and the idea that you're kind of flirting with the edges of would be if you have organic material like cotton or cloth, and then you have inorganic material like aluminum foil, and then you put cloth and then aluminum foil and then cloth and aluminum foil and then cloth and aluminum foil and all those things together, and you press them together, you're going to make something that has its own EMF, its own electromagnetic field. Okay, so now with that, you can solidify it into an object and use it to disrupt other fields, or use it to cleanse other fields. So the expression of orgonite would be how you're creating a physical object that's resonating at a organic or the frequency of orgone energy, which has a lot of different definitions depending on people's interpretation of the original research, but most of the research is available for people these days. So I know early experience with orgonite for myself, it was very simple, and I noticed very immediate effects. I just took like a bottle cap and I put a little bit of resin in, and I sprinkled in some shavings of crystals and some metals and like a washer or a nut or something. And after it dried, I was like, okay, I can feel the field around this. Like it has its own sort of soft aura. And I began to figure out like if I placed those in different places, I could adjust the resonance that I felt in my vessel in the environment around me. So to create a grid would be organizing your energy. So organized organizers usually work with orgonite because it's something that you can kind of stack consciousness with. Because if you have a really cool specimen of rock, it can help ground you. Or if you have a really wonderful plant around, it can do some really great things for your energy just to kind of hold up the ambiance.
Yeah.
If you have an animal around, that can change your frequency and kind of flavor of energy. But orgonite would be a form of craft that's related to the mineral kingdom and the disciplines of geomancy and stonemongering and all these such things. Follow where I'm going?
Yeah.
Word.
That's a cool word, stonemongering.
Thanks. I'm kind of a wordsmith. I play with vocabulary, but my friends reinforce it, and I really appreciate that community that I have. So.
Nice. There was a question. You're talking about channeling minerals and communicating with minerals. I've always been curious on So when the say you channel a stone, channel a mineral, you have a conversation with it. Where was it? Does its does its consciousness sort of manifest as per your bidding to have a conversation with you, and then it sort of dissolves back into mineralness, or is there another realm where
Both.
both?
You're correct in both ways, but a more useful metaphor for the mind that I'm presenting you knowledge from, like from my spaceship time space reality bubble,
Uh-huh.
the crystalline stones are always vibrating at a consciousness that we can dial into. So if you
Okay.
slow down and connect with a stone and resonate at that frequency, you can sort of dip into that server. You can log into that mind.
I
And
see.
depending upon your dialogue and how much resonance you have with that particular stone or even the kingdom itself, you'll
Uh-huh.
have a different form of experience. Like imagine somebody who's a city person, who's around a stone, metal buildings, a bunch of particulate of mineral in the air from pollution, and
Uh-huh.
taking usually prescription medication, so they're putting little minerals in their brains to change how their glands work. You put them in the middle of a forest for a couple days, they gonna get fucked up proper. Their brain's just gonna change because they're like, whoa, what's going on here? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Same thing if you take somebody who's in the wilderness, squatching, hanging out, doing the camping thing, definitely in the permaculture bit, and you drop them in the middle of a city space. They're going to feel a kind of, whoa, everybody's in like these stone golems and they drive around in these protective carriages made of metal, and everybody exchanges metal coins or paper notes, or like swipe digital things to each other, and that's how they track commerce. Nobody even has to be nice or civil to each other. They just have to be like minimally sober. When you get in,
Minimally, keyword.
right, when you get into conversations of this ilk, people talking about things, and I figure since we're like an hour and a half deep, I can let the stops out a little bit. I didn't want to be like too abrasive at the beginning because I figure if people are going to listen this far and they're on board, you got to notice the axes that we just arbitrarily defined, that trust matrix. Trust is one, authenticality is another, legititude
Mhm.
is another, and
Uh-huh.
when you have that, or when you have that as a metric, you begin to notice how much inner knowledge you have of yourself. So if you don't know where you fall in that spectrum, it's going to be freaking
Mhm.
weird and odd and strange to try to build or develop a relationship, even as an observer, to somebody else on that spectrum.
Yeah.
But as soon as you know thyself and you get more familiar with your unique flavor of you, it becomes so much more intuitive who speaks your language and who doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you end up really vibing with people for a while and then they kind of fall out of circuit.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you meet somebody and there's like a weird grinding and then click, you hit resonance.
Mm-hmm.
These in my mind would be all how our rainbow bodies are interacting. And so I've developed a concept personally, just metaphors and word work, of rainbow crystal. And so my website would be rainbowcrystal.org. I teach rainbow crystal yoga. I'm talking about rainbow crystal wellness because I'm trying to crystallize the personal rainbow so that we can act as a prism, sort of a higher density of self. Because there's like the 7 chakras or the 8 chakras or the 9 chakras or the 12 chakras or the 24 chakras or however you want to talk about it. We've got a bunch of systems. But I was pretty sure that the people who founded this country would have expected us to rewrite all the rules by now because they were in horse-drawn carriage societies that didn't have electricity.
Fair.
So now that we're like, as creatures, we're resonating at a different kind of frequency. We
Yeah.
could be developing a society of existence that is of a different natural order. So I'd
Yeah.
say that's kind of what we're doing now.
That's that's beautifully said. I
Gratitude.
like that. Is that sort of your mission statement then for the
Sure,
rainbow?
I'll take it. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
always trying to build different words around it. And it's, to me, defining different ways to have the conversation. Because if you can mention it, you can manage it. A lot of
Yeah.
people are scared to even bring up the topic because Voldemort. Oh no. You hear me?
Yeah. No, that's great because it seems to be right now either the dialogue is those are the bad guys, we're the good guys. We gotta win, they gotta lose, instead of like I guess the way you're pitching it is it's not about good or bad. It's about hey, we've evolved now. Let's change our system. To a
Right.
system that makes a
For
little more
sure. So I'm
sense.
going to draw some other lore from other parts of the world just to see if we can put another depth on this conversation. Ready?
Uh-huh.
Gaia 2012 project, I think, is the text that you'd find this information on, but I'm going to cliff note it because I found the book and liked it so much that I gave it away and then went and got it again, read it again, and gave it away the second time. I think the local library has one, but I think I'm going to track it down. It essentially says that there's fifth dimensional consciousness, and fifth dimensional consciousness is all consciousness, consciousness in all of its entirety, the sum collective consciousness. Fifth dimensional consciousness noticed that there was some fourth dimensional consciousness. That fourth dimensional consciousness was consciousness, but with limitations. And then fourth dimensional consciousness also was aware of third dimensional consciousness, and second dimensional consciousness, and first dimensional consciousness, right? So, fifth dimensional consciousness has fathomed that sixth dimensional consciousness could happen, but that's kind of out of scope at this conversation. What I'm saying is that arguably the fifth graders, or level 5 consciousness, found a way to develop a school. And so they developed Earth, Gaia, this plane of master thesis and recess in the same breath. It's a place where first dimensional consciousness can have experiences to become second. Second dimensional consciousness can have experience to become third. Third can become fourth. And arguably, once enough fourth becomes fifth, we could imagine it becomes sixth. That would be kind of like the trajectory of our collective ascendancy. Because, I mean, it's a tricky one. You might have to take a deep breath before you do this one. Maybe a drink of water after. But how do you think the world would be if everybody on Earth just got along for real?
I mean, like the movies and books, like the utopias that we see, I guess.
Do you have that clearly defined in your mind?
For me personally.
You personally.
Oh, me personally? I would see it. Oh man, I would see advancement in technology and civilization and spirituality happening almost instantaneously. Almost instantaneous. Whatever we want done, it's done within a few weeks.
I'm running on a few seconds, but I hear you. A few weeks.
Few seconds would be nice too, but yeah, I feel like, oh, all right, like, yeah, we're going to Mars. Okay, the whole world does it. We're curing this, all right, the whole world is in on it. You know, we all want to meditate. All right, all 7.5 billion of us are meditating tonight at 9 for whatever it is.
Sweet.
You know what
So,
I mean?
absolutely, with this state that you've been able to develop, because I absolutely love the direction that you're speaking towards, please from there turn around and look backwards to here on July in 2020 and tell me, how do we get there? From there, look here and say, what would we be required to do as a society from here to get towards that frequency? What would be the first step?
Well, only because we've been having this conversation, it would be creating a dialogue, a concrete dialogue with definitions, so we can all agree on something and all and all move forward with the same sort of goal of getting shit done.
Right, we're developing metrics.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I think it's important that we are being willing as a society and as individuals to have the difficult conversations. Because through the difficult conversations, whatever they are, we're going to get through. But I tend to find there are two kinds of difficult conversations, and I'm going to use the chakra metaphor if that's okay, kind of go into the rainbow world for a minute. From the blue of the throat, you got the emotional tones, so the greenish blues, the kind of the way people talk. So if you talk to somebody and you legit like the sound of their voice, you're going to listen to them differently than if you talk to somebody and you legit just can't stand the sound of their voice because the way that they talk just annoys the fuck out of you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's just... versus the throat kind of energy or the blue energy that's more in the purpley kind of side, where perhaps an individual has an opportunity to express an exquisite form of vocabulary syntax. But if you don't know those words, it doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But if you know the tone they're using, you can kind of infer.
Uh-huh.
Versus if somebody's like, I actually have no idea what a DHCP server is. Sorry, you're going to have to tell me what that is.
Uh-huh.
I can't intuit its meaning from the way you said it. You follow where I'm pointing at?
Yeah.
Okay, for sure. Way sweet. How do you think breath affects trees and plants? Like, what's their process of carbon dioxide and oxygen?
Like their scientific botanical process?
More so like their relationship.
Like what's the plant's relationship to the breath?
Yeah.
I don't know. lot of stale is the only thing coming to my mind. They don't move very much,
Okay,
subtle still.
for sure. Subtle, still distilling may be a way to say it as well. I would imagine that as a plant, working with the statics to us, but air is kind of like water. Air has different kind of pressures, and air is moving all the time. So the plants probably sense that on an intuitive kind of plane. The
Mm,
minerals would be involved. Because if there's the appropriate minerals that the plant can expand and contract according to the moisture and the temperature in its environment, it would be able to moderate its own growth. And there would be a natural intelligence inside of the seed itself that creates the plant that sort of auto regulates through AI, through autonomic intelligence. The
mm-hmm,
plant kind of grows itself to the best of its capacity.
mm-hmm.
So the mineral kingdom in this argument would be one of the pieces that helps the plant kingdom, as well as the elemental
Absolutely.
kingdom of like specific elements. And it gets heady here, as well as the light kingdom, because somebody mentioned photosynthesis. And yes, that would be another form of consciousness, would be numinousness or lightness.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, I guess there's 1,000 different relationships that plants can have with. You're talking about air right now, and some trees will only grow right before the rain because they sense that barometric pressure drop, and so they know that rain's coming. So they pack on growth, knowing that water is on its way to sort of counterbalance the explosive growth that they have. So some
Right.
people, that's what the frankincense trees do. So people will know when the desert is like, oh, it's about to rain. Everyone get ready. The frankincense trees are exploding right now. We know there's a pressure drop.
Nice.
Water's on the way. So it's. I guess you can't really separate. You can't separate them. Then they're tied to the wind and the elements and the minerals and shit, right?
Right, so that biological phenomenon could be seen as a Gaian energy because
The,
it's happening locally on Earth. So people who are familiar with the local conditions of Earth can see it as a phenomenon. But if you're normalized to Venusian or Venus energy or the Mars energy, like you identify as so much a starseed, then on Earth could just not make sense to you.
hmm. Do you think there can be an imbalance with that sort of?
Nope, everybody's always balanced 100%. And we're all out of balance because we're dancing with the universe.
Yeah, we need that wobble, like it
Tasty
keeps that
wobble.
it keeps that rhythm in place,
Mm-hmm.
like tastefully falling over, and that's what I call a skank in the reggae music. It's kind of like you're falling off balance, but
Nice.
rhythmically the whole time, you know.
Right, right. Flying is falling with style. I dig it.
There you go, a little Buzz Lightyear. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna dip into these comments again because I haven't been in here for a while.
No worries. Take your time. I got it up on the field on the side, so I'm just watching them as they roll in.
Oh, that's awesome.
I also want to throw you this link tree so you can kind of see the footprint because I'm trying to figure out the best way to communicate online with the peoples. Because I think there's a huge digital community of people who want to have these conversations and want to define terms and want to disagree. And like, I'm down if people want to respectfully disagree and have a dialogue. But if somebody wants to tell me that I'm wrong and they don't want to talk about it, I'm just wrong. I don't know if I really want to, pursue communication with somebody with that agenda or intention. You hear?
Yeah, and I feel like we're both on the same kind of wavelength where it's like I'm more so not like you're wrong, you're right, but I'm like, all right, tell me everything you know and tell me why you feel that way, so I can like get a feel for it, like
For
because like
sure.
you said, it's a lot of stuff you can't necessarily prove, but
It sounds like you're saying let's correlate stories so then we can correlate perspectives.
correlate stories, and then like you said, then we find a common ground. It's like, all right, well that aligns with my beliefs, just in a different lens. You know what I mean? But patterns are there,
Totally.
which makes it useful, and it also saves me time because you're just a book that I can get the cliff notes from in one and
I
a half,
mean,
2 hours instead of 15 hours of reading.
fair, fair. We're collaborating in our experience because you've been able to sum total or sort of summarize the collective meanings of your experience through your life. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been able to do the same. However, both of us value storytelling.
Yeah.
So in this way, it's kind of a productive, intentional, freeform story with like the wheel of morality, turn, 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 tell us the lesson we should learn, kind of thing.
Damn. Damn. All right. Yeah. Well, I got sidetracked again. I'm gonna check the comments.
You're good, no
Yeah.
worries.
So what? I guess this is the $1 million question. But what do you see when you look forward? So you have your idea to get the world evolved to a mostly cooperative place, and you're looking back on it and seeing the steps how to get there. Is it sort of the same thing, getting the dialogue on point with everyone?
Mm-hmm. Uh, so, trying to figure out how I want to gently get into this conversation, but it seems like an appropriate action to take because we're changing some fields here. So, there's a complexity to life, some may say. And with that complexity, there's a form of artful interaction.
Mhm.
So, in the artful interaction, there could be said to be complex skills and techniques and simple skills and techniques.
Mm.
So, a simple technique is usually learnable by most people, whereas a complex technique usually takes some time and focused effort. The complex technique that both you and I are sharing in this form is not only conversation, so converse, opposite song. We're singing back and forth and kind of kicking a hacky sack of conversation to make sure that we're lucidly engaged with each other rather than, staring at Reddit or engaged in some other thing while we're supposed to be having a live communication.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
By defining here now as the plane of experience, that means that you're able to show up in all of your rainbow, all of your crystal, all of your starseed, all of your earthseed, all of your galactic origin as one to the best of your ability in time and space right here, right now.
Uh-huh.
The same for myself. So the most delicate part of this is the direction of the dialogue and what we choose to talk about.
Correct.
Because if the word and the will are very close to each other, and everything we say is going to affect the future, then our conversation is effectively investing in what is to come. Do you follow? By taking literal what we say in this dialogue, it will be taken out of context because we're not talking about people walking around being made of amethyst necessarily.
Yeah.
To suspend our disbelief in these advanced topics makes mental space and sort of defragments some of the pop culture programming to allow for common ground to be shared with the dialogue within and not but a dialogue externally because we're all reflecting different parts of the simulation to each other and back. So I see personally through a lens kind of like the oversoul, like a star family, like a bigger pattern. And that perspective has at times been detrimental to my experience because I was kind of like stuck in microscope mode. Like I was just looking at the small things and kind of totally oblivious to what was around me, but I was like hyper focused, like a goldsmith maybe, in a bad way. Rather than a goldsmith who's very delicate and skilled and then steps away and is able to detach and then enjoy the experience because they know that the alchemical life is gold as well. So you can't just work with the ore itself because if it absorbs to your fingers too much, you can be imbalanced. So in creating a community or a tribe or an oversoul group that people have a common language or common ways to connect means that when we interact, we are squaring each other and we're working with exponent relationships rather than like multiplying or adding by each other. If you want to understand somebody, you're going to go out of your way to do your best to understand where they're coming from. Conversely, if you don't want to understand somebody, you're going to intentionally misunderstand them at potentially every single opportunity. That relationship starts with how you feel about yourself. Do you want to understand yourself and where you're coming from and what you done did before and what you're doing now, what you think you're probably going to do in the future? Because if you do, it may behoove you, maybe hoof of you is where that term came from to the best of my knowledge. Again, centaur, Arcturus thing running through the world. to have a journal and every day write a page in the morning and a page at night, just to mentally take something out of your brain and to put it somewhere.
Mhm.
Now, if you really feel called to painting, whether it's oil or watercolor or with a tablet, instead of writing, then do one of those canvases every day. If it's sculpting, if it's spending 15 minutes in your garden and that's how you're reflecting on your experience, do that. Not everybody's chipping hieroglyphs. But some of the earliest writings, to the research that I've been shared with from my elders, have to do with stencil art, where they would take berry juice and go on the wall. And they would just make stencils and shapes with their hands, and it would stain the wall. And that's how they would communicate plans to each other of what they wanted to do.
Oh shit.
So it may or may not be scientifically true, but I got a lot of stories in my life of my experience and what I've been told. And what I love to do is to share the authority that's been vested in me in a container that's respectful of the fact that this is a story. I'm not telling you the story.
Yeah.
It's a story.
Yeah. So it sounds like, if I'm paraphrasing, we need the dialogue, but we also need the expression, and we also need, I guess, we also have to have a desire to understand ourselves.
Right. Because if you don't have like a,
or we can understand others.
right, if you don't have a foundation within your own experience, then any relationship you're trying to build with a reflection is going to be unfounded because you don't have your starting ground, your starting place.
And what does that look like though? Because that's actually a line I've heard a lot. A foundation in your own experience. Can you break that down? Because I hear that a lot, but it's
Easy
used
squeezy.
as a filler, not as like, hey, what does that look like, feel like, sound like, taste like? You know what I mean?
I got you. I bet you a quarter it'll work. Are you on?
What's that?
I said, I got you. I bet you a quarter it'll work. Are you on?
Yeah, hit me.
All right, cool. So take a second and go ahead and adjust your shoulders if you could, please. And just kind of reset your experience. Maybe wiggle your toes a little bit, wiggle your fingers. Take a few breaths. Kind of get into your space. You know, be you. Be where you're at. All right. So now are you feeling differently than when I said that I bet you a quarter?
Yes.
Gotcha. Where's my quarter?
That's right.
Word. I'm down. No worries. We'll figure it out. Something lost in postage. No worries. But that's the thing. Grounded in your own experiences, being in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Now that would be like level 1 of grounding your experience. And these are just arbitrary levels that I'm using for this conversation because everybody has their own metrics. So level 2 of being grounded in your body would be looking at how your body feels yesterday based on what you ate yesterday, as compared to what your body feels like today based on what you ate today.
Mm-hmm.
With that kind of timeline, you can make an informed decision tomorrow what you're probably going to want to eat, if you want to use the information from before in a relevant way. But if you aren't archiving that data, you could forget. And you'd be like, oh shit, how much of that did I have? I don't remember. Fuck. So you're just kind of freestyling all the time.
Easier if you're not archiving the data.
What was that?
Or you could lie to yourself easier if you're not archiving the data.
Because there are dishonest metrics.
Yeah. Or it's easier that way. You know, I don't want, like me, I don't want to check what I'm spending my money on because I know I'm spending my money on. Like how much did you spend eating out? How much did you spend on gas? How much, you know, you could just.
Right. So I guess what I'm saying is if you realize that if you ate out 1/3 less, you could afford an Oculus Rift in 2 months, would you do it?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, then that's a really important reason to track your finances in that way.
Yeah. I was giving an example because I was like, all right, well, because again, I'm trying to think of, it's got to manifest differently in different people. So I was like, oh shit, for me, like I'll avoid things because a part of me knows, but I can also shut that part off enough to not let it like spill into the consciousness. You know what I mean?
Word. So what do you think you might be able to accomplish if you weren't trying to shut that part of your brain off all the time?
I would just be better at humaning, you know.
Oh, Hughes, you would have more human rainbow access. I dig it.
There you go. There you go. It'd have more of that hue access. Definitely. That's funny. Human. I didn't see it like that.
A favorite for sure. I get to throw out all the stops because like puns and pop culture jokes are things that I highly value when people bring up. So to be able to bring the novelty of like the navigation of imagination is a really exciting topic for sure.
It is, and that's like, again, that's why I asked you too. How does that show up for you? Because you giving your personal examples are going to stimulate the imagination for other people to be like, oh, well, that's not how it shows up for me, but it, you know, opened up another door in the same room that did show how I operate. Like, oh, I can relate in a different way. You know what I mean? So it is.
Yes.
Imagination is fucking huge, man.
Okay, so we can take that word and chop it up a little bit. I, Magi Nation.
Oh wow.
I is the name of the nation of magicians.
Mm.
So as soon as you think about yourself as your
Mm-hmm.
I, not your I, your I, who you are,
Mm-hmm.
you are connecting to a oversoul or a collective consciousness that is like a nation. It has so many people, it's extremely vast. And
Uh-huh.
all of us are magicians. None
Uh-huh.
of us are not magicians. There are
Uh-huh.
no mages here. There are no muggles here. This is a dimension of only magicians, nothing else.
Uh-huh.
And so when you accept or work with your I or your I am, you're resonating at a different level of intuitive guidance because you've
Mm-hmm.
maybe upgraded from FM and AM into HD.
Mm-hmm. The, the part that I strive most to connect, or not to connect, but is that connect, is how, because you said to bridge the gap, to accept the I. You know, there's always the something I understand out there, but I have to meet it out there. And that's like where I'm most interested in, is like how, but then I guess, you know, you could say, well, it's only on the inside, but it is on the inside. But to even use the language
Right.
of, oh, you got to connect with it, gives a sense of,
Right. So we
I
got to
should
slow
have to.
down. We got to slow down. We got to define what how means. Because
Okay,
how implies that you're not connected with it already, right?
correct.
But what makes you think that you could be disconnected from it?
The I guess the fact that I'm not experiencing it at least as fully as I should or want to.
Okay, so in other words, the perspective of an expanded state is limiting you of pursuing it because you identify with the limited state rather than with the expanded state that you're perceiving.
Yeah, but I guess it's not. It's I guess using the word identify is almost
Okay,
too
well,
much.
you're
It's not
standing
like
in
a
that
willed
dimension.
identification. You know what
You're
I mean?
standing in that dimension. You're identifying with that space rather than identifying with the future where everything's
Oh,
good and
I
then
see.
operating from that level. It's like you got the Mario flute all the time, put on a song, doo-doo-doo. Now you're on a different dimensional plane of consciousness.
Uh huh.
So you can hear these mantras or power songs or artistic expressions. Take a minute to look at Van Gogh. Really look at Van Gogh. Really look at Starry Night. Really take the time
Uh
to absorb those things. Check
huh.
out some Chihuly. You know what I mean? Like get into the kind of craft of life.
Uh
Or,
huh.
go look at the oak tree's leaves. Take a time to watch a caterpillar crawl around.
Yeah. That's true. There is a sort of proactiveness to it that's often overlooked.
Right. And I think that proactivity and interactivity, there's a bead that some people miss that could be seen as processing and participating.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're processing data for a system, you're a participant in the system.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're participating in a system, you're processing data in the system. So if you're talking to somebody and they really drain your energy and you feel really low, it may not be that they're feeling really boosted and charged after you. It may just be that they're in Tasmanian devil mode and making a big mess.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you talk to somebody and feel really dialed in and tuned in and up in resonance, and in conversation you learn that they do too, it may be that you're creating a positive feedback loop rather than a negative feedback loop when you take the microphone too close to the speaker and it goes, whew.
Mm-hmm.
It could be seen as a form of resonance when you would have maybe one angelic presence with another angelic presence.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be just them times each other. They'd have like access to a higher level of legion, arguably, right?
Uh-huh.
So same kind of thing if you had a gnome running around with like trying to use localized words here. If you had a gnome running around with a sylph or a salamander, yeah, salamander, a fire elemental.
Uh-huh.
So you had like a little fire spirit, a salamander, a lizard made of pure flame. That's just kind of chilling its thing, hanging out with a productive relationship with a gnome who's gnoming out.
Uh-huh.
They would get up to totally different adventures, Milo and Oda style, than either of them would do separately. And if you
Yeah.
get a bunch of individuals of different galactic origins or different resonating forms, or if people think that they're, part any mythical thing, group XP and party XP is what
Uh-huh.
worlds are made of.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Nice.
So I'm throwing some things towards the chat process. I think subconscious, conscience, and superconscious. Sometimes people get blurry in that because they haven't defined their terms. So a good way to think about the subconscious for my dialogue is to think about your roots, like your root chakra, which would be like your tailbone, like the bottom of your torso, the very bottom, like the top of your head. No, the bottom of your body, the bottom of your torso. That would be like sort of where your root chakra point is focused. But then there would be the subroot. And the subroot would be the bottom of your feet. Or the taproot, maybe. Because that's actually where you make impact with the earth and then have this sort of loving dance or stomping. Everybody has their own way of walking. There's also like a crown and an overcrown, or like a family crown or a family name, or a form of honor or a sense of a responsibility to others that you can notice in people, and they carry themselves with a specific level of awareness. I think those are sort of representations of different steps of the consciousness. You know, people think about it, primal and primitive. Okay, so primal means you know where the feces goes and you know where the food goes, and you can keep those separate. Got primal energy stabilized, you can get to primitive energy. And primitive energy is, as a group, you know where the feces goes and you know where the food goes. Because now you can start to have primitive development of communication. But if people have imbalanced primal energy, in a primitive society, they're going to be out of balance. Their root chakra is foobarred. So it's a matter of identifying who you are right here, right now. What are your needs? You have enough air, you have enough water, you have enough food, you have enough confidence, trust in yourself, trust in the universe, faith in whatever it is that you believe in. But faith is another thing. Like, the muscle of belief is strong. And so when we flex the idea of believing in something, it can be malleable. You can change your beliefs if you want as you learn more information. Being willy-nilly isn't necessarily recommended. But having a sense of adaptability encourages curiosity.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
instead of trying to focus on the bad things and make them better, a lot of what I try to communicate with people about is to look at the buffet of life and look at what you already got on your plate and how much space you got left. How much space of your life you think is unfilled. You still got potential for growth and change. Now you want to look at the buffet and find the things that you like the most. Look at your plate, look at what you got, look at those things, define them as clearly as you can, and then make actions to grab so much of the good stuff that you're crowding out the bad stuff. You don't necessarily got to put it off the plate, but you do want to get it away from the center so that you can keep your mind focused on what it is you want to create. Much appreciation for the conversation and dialogue. I don't often get a chance to freewheel like this, so being able to speak with you as a person is super awesome, and then be in this context where it's being shared with others, and I know that it will encourage more further dialogue, is super exciting to me, because I feel like we're making some real awesome groundwork here.
Yeah, no, I like it because it's obviously a daunting task to be like, hey, let's just evolve the world. How do we do that? Like, God, no, who knows? There's 7, but who knows? But now it's like, oh, conversation.
Change worldwide starts from inside. I'm just throwing a bunch of song lyrics that rhyme, so that's arbitrarily where all these random nuggets come from. I wish I could claim them all as my own, but none of them are.
No, well, let's on that, let's go. You guys have questions, and we'll wrap it up with questions. I'm sure we could go hours with questions, but let's at least get to some dialogue, because I'm sure some people are stoked to ask you some things and
sure
interactive about it. I don't know if you guys have already been. If you could type man of letters in the question, you guys would be helpful too, because it'll highlight my name so it stands out a little better. Or throw cap lock in there or something.
I'm gonna ask if it's all right with you if you could do another screen share for the Linktree post that I have.
Oh, absolutamente.
Muchas gracias, mi amigos.
Linktree. And
Swiggity sweet. Thank you so much.
Is Richie ZXY's Linktree, you guys, which you might know but might not know is basically his hub for everything he's dipping into. Online sessions, his About Me, his Techno Druid swag, which I have no idea what's about, but it sounds pretty dope.
T-shirts. T-shirts and Imagine hoodies are both from Bonfire, which is an online design. You can click through and check it out. So I just had an order actually today that closed. So if anybody starts a new order, it'll be open for like 7 days before it closes out.
Yo, check that out. Check that out. That's super dope.
Gratitude, appreciate it. I recommend you throw down some bonfire time if you have any interest in graphic design or just making swag because they're pretty cool.
Like to make my own teas, you're saying?
Yeah, it's for nonprofits and for online peoples. I can send you a promo code that if you do something, it'll like give you a boost or give you a cut or something like that.
Yeah, do definitely do that because I'm definitely in the business of getting hoodies and tees. That sounds. This is awesome too.
Thanks, man. For sure.
Get all that alchemy.
And then, yeah, the backside, for sure.
Oh, that's interesting. What's up with this money symbol and the planted money heart tree?
So let's take a straight line and turn it into a sine wave and then put another straight line on top of it. You got a money sign. Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
Let's take a caduceus and take a chunk out of it and then maybe break off a few parts because we're using it pretty recklessly. Or what if you just take the letter S and decide that you're trying to strike it out, but then realize that it's more powerful with a strike? These will be all ideas. That and the other design were just random shapes and designs they had in there. So the first press of t-shirts that I made had the DNA strand to the earth to the solar, which I think is a really cool pattern for kind of attention focus. But then I wanted to build something on the either sides because I realized there was potential area. So there's the like paperclip person meditating to encourage inner work. And then there's realizing that every thought is a ripple and everything we're doing with our heart is creating some kind of abundance somewhere for somebody. Now, I think abundance specifically is the ability to do what you need to do when you need to do it. But that's a lot of needs. You have to have your roots stabilized to be able to perceive that. If your roots are ungrounded, like your taproot isn't there, you don't have a good network of people who are helping you be healthy, you could misinterpret your needs and wants. So once your roots are stabilized, monetary abundance is only one form, but then you want the abundance of the time of the people you care about. You want the abundance of the flexibility in your perspective.
Yes. That's a useful one.
Abundance of patience, abundance of humor, abundance of wit, maybe sarcasm, maybe, you know what I mean? Everybody's got their own focus. But
nice.
just,
These are your services. Your yoga, what's yoga, individual yoga sessions?
Yep, you can click through there. There's a day page on it. I also do community yoga here locally in the area that I'm at, so every Sunday. So all the prices are flexible. I just made that so that if somebody wants to throw something at me and say, I want to schedule this with you, there's a platform for them to do it. But I highly encourage people to do the 15-minute free consultation. It'll give you a link, schedule a time. We'll talk and figure out what's best for you and figure out the form of exchange because you may have an expertise that I would like more knowledge in. So we can do across the table and, you know, keep the currency out of it.
Do you discuss and outline flow styles and explosive states of meditative? Is that like a guided meditation?
It can be.
It can be.
Yeah. I mean, if people want like custom recorded guided meditations, that'd be easy to do. It's just a matter of defining your attention. And maybe there's one that somebody else made that's more appropriate, so you don't necessarily need one from me, you know?
Yeah, no, I was just curious because you said you're diving in while you're meditating, so I was curious what that looked like. How do you?
Well, I think from the 101 perspective, it's a lot of numbers. It's all right, let's sit quietly and count to 100. Or count down from 100. Or let's start at 10 and count up by even numbers. And see where your brain goes. See what feelings you have when we try these different number exercises. And then instead of numerical logic, we can move forward. But that's the cool thing about numbers. In our language and system right now in Western society, Western culture, there's no such thing as an uppercase or a lowercase number. And numbers don't have grammar and syntax past a comma. Maybe decimal points if you want.
Percent.
That's meditation for me is a really passionate topic, and I really like to customize all of the discussions for the people who I'm talking to specifically, because the astronaut in the imagination is most effective when it actually sees what simulation it's in. And right now we're like throwing into the infinite abyss of the internet, so it's duper fun, don't get me wrong, but to say definitively this and this and this, I don't know if we're necessarily the most effective.
The internet. Is that what you're saying?
Communicating specifically pointed information about personal perspectives in the internet has to be done with a form of respect to the listener as well as the speaker. And right now, if somebody wants to misunderstand me, they really could.
Oh, I
People could
see.
listen to things I'm saying and really take it out of context and try to deep fake me and make things really hard. So,
Yeah, I know. I hear you. I hear you.
and in that
Loud,
way,
loud,
I
clear.
I choose to make sure to speak in such a way that's consistent. And if you have interacted with individuals, and I invite you to, I'll connect you with other people in my Imaginot network if you'd like. If you interact with people in my circles and you share stories of our experiences together, you're going to see that I share a lot of the same stories and get people excited about similar things. Because I feel like we all can learn from our heroes. And I don't really like to talk about experiences that hurt me. I'd rather talk about experiences that help me grow. Sometimes pain's part of that growth. But sometimes you grow just because you slowed down for a moment, and slowing down was the right choice.
Hmm. Yeah, well said.
Gratitude, gratitude.
Said. All right. Well, I that was the link tree, guys, and I'm gonna put the copy paste that bad boy into this. Ooh, someone highlighted my name.
Mm-hmm.
Alchemy would like to know what is your take on quantum entanglement and how crystals affect us? There's a question for you. I'm pretty sure it's
I think it's probably both of us.
free.
I don't know if it's like they're tagging you to ask me, but we're probably
I know.
having,
I'm
having a
like,
conversation about it.
"Okay."
For sure. Gratitude and gratitude for all the listeners now and the others who listen to the recording of it. But I guess we got to define our terms first. We've already kind of talked about crystals. But you want to take a stab at defining what this entanglement of quantumivity is? If that's the word. Quantumivity. Yes. I made a new one.
Okay. um, yeah, quantum entanglement would be the oneness. We're all extending from source, so we all, I think, cannot rise higher than its source. I think is a quote out of the Kabbalah, and it's basically saying that we all come from the same thing. Therefore, all of this we all contain the same thing inside of us, and you pull on one, and they all sort of pull at the same time. Is my understanding of quantum entanglement. Though I'm not sure I like the word entanglement because it almost sounds like doesn't sound like it is. It's like trapped when you're tangled in something is to be trapped in something, and it is. I don't necessarily like quantum entanglement, but I know what they're getting at. Basically, is what I'm getting at. So,
Okay.
oh
Okay.
yeah,
I think I want to define quantum entanglement as the the perspective of some of the subtlest energies between the 0 point or the nothingness or the void plane and early elemental or mineral consciousness. Because the quanta or the quantum would arguably be like, this, a cubic centimeter of pure chance that is gone. Where'd it go? I don't know. It's somewhere in the universe. It's pure chance. It's just what it does. That kind of randomness could be seen as the butterfly effect, where if you do one thing here, it totally and disproportionately affects something further away. But by somebody choosing to wear something with a crystal, they're carrying that crystal with them through time and space. And therefore, they're affecting on a quantum level the environment around them because they have adorned themselves with this accessory. I think this is highly connected to a form of higher level empathy from the heart that has to do with people who have dreads. Because you got to be super patient with yourself as a human being if you're going to choose to have locks and choose to keep them in good condition. You hear me?
yeah,
What?
yeah.
So I think that it's very possible for crystals to be used as partners and as allies and to create positive relationships with the crystalline consciousness and individual specimens as well. First, you have to have a good dialogue with yourself. You have to start from the foundation. If you don't have a foundation, you don't have any consciousness to learn from. There are some people who communicate through this digital dialogue of the internet, and they're like two cars fueling from each other. Like they just take the fuel tank and they're like filling up, and then they're just like sharing fuel. And in order for the conversation to really be productive, at least one or both of those people needs to be taking their information that they've collected, synthesized with the experiences that they've had, to create the knowledge that they are informed by, and that will be where they act from.
So was that on quantum entanglement and crystals affecting us?
I believe so. I think it has to do with choosing to use crystals in a positive way. If you got to carry around a 6 pound amethyst thing around your wrist, around your neck, around your wrist, maybe that's not so healthy of a relationship. But if you realize that having a, what is it, a bismuth pin really makes you feel really good about the world at large, either on your like shirt or coat or hat or something like that, that'd be awesome. Maybe carrying around that pebble that you found in the river actually is something you want to do because it doesn't hurt anybody. It isn't negative, and that allows you to build a relationship with that special stone for a little while, which is a further dimension of developing a relationship with yourself.
All right, I got a question for you.
Wait.
Oh.
Okay, now I'm ready. You're fine.
It's like, wait, I can do that. If there's one thing I can do, it's wait.
Patience is a virtue. It's one of those kangaroos from that movie, man, for sure.
We're diving deep. The conversations are heady as fuck. I would imagine that you're 10 times as heady off camera as you are on, because you're trying to reel it in for the listeners, which we appreciate.
Yes, gratitude for listeners, for sure.
I guess because we might have talked about this last time, but I've been slowing down a lot on the diving and having a more laissez-faire approach to things.
Huh.
And you can find it through any sort of venue, any route. You personally, this would you say this super heady philosophical approach is just your style? Do you find it more useful? Like, do you ever just not think about these things? You're like, I'm just gonna read Lord of the Rings and watch a movie and go for a walk for the next, something along those lines for the next 5 years. You know what I mean? And just.
This is the fiction book that I'm reading right now. It's a Shadowrun book, which is like fantasy sci-fi. Computers and guns and trolls and dwarves and the Matrix and cars and dragons who are politicians and corporations. And this is published in like 91. This is a 1991 publishing, but it's volume 3, so it's the third book of this. And Shadowrun is a D6, so a 6-sided dice role-playing game, pen and paper. And I've read many role-playing game manuals to kind of figure out what they all about. And I think it's important for people to participate in other realms of dreams and like have, fictional things and crafts and things and hobbies that they're interested in.
Yeah.
So synthesizing that random book throw to more answering your question. Right now we're having a conversation where I'm channeling myself in this conversation because I'm not walking around. So I'm not thinking about how my body's moving so much. I'm aware of like how my legs are, like how my arms are, if I'm over gesticulating or not. Like I'm conscious of these things personally, but the consciousness specifically is related to creating a effective and efficient, as much as can be done, dialogue with a fellow co-creator of multiple dimensional realities, because we're like royalty. Like we're literally moving through the world having studied things that less people know about, which therefore gives us some kind of edge, for lack of a better term. So scaling that in, I have created a sort of business identity called Rainbow Crystal that I have as a wellness education company. So I'm just educating about wellness. If it's subtle energy arts, okay. If it's nutritive health, okay. If it's financial or cryptocurrency or abundance or technological creativity or craft, like people get artist block, writer's block, all of these things I think are related to wellness in a holistic way. So that's sort of a spawn of a project which I call Imaginaut. And Imaginaut is me as a singular consciousness pioneering through the universe and then arbitrarily deciding that you, which by the way, Keith, you are now an Imaginaut. You've joined the clique. That's how it goes. Everybody who's in the clique I've interacted with personally. So you can count on the Imaginauts at least knowing that I'm a person. And I do my best to make that the common ground. So there's a I got a couple Twitter pages, but I don't use it much. Telegram account is where I do most of the communication. I've got Imaginaut links where I'm throwing at least one link a day of different relevant news. I've got Imagine Music where I'm trying to throw music, either tracks or mix sets. And then Imagine Media where I got different YouTube videos and things. I'm sort of syndicating it on Discord right now, but that's a lot of like admin work for myself as well. So
Yeah.
Telegram has been the platform that I've on so far. So if you can get the app or get in the application even on your computer, I'll get you into that platform for sure. But like that's my network of people that I'm choosing to cultivate and grow because we're starting a music sharing project where people can share music laterally rather than just me being the sharer of music. And I want to be able to create visitation so that when people go places, they're like, hey, is there an Imaginaut around? It's like, yeah, okay. We're part of the same clique and tribe. We can
Uh,
communicate as a localized force because
uh-uh.
we're all over the globe right now, but there are some of us in similar countries. So that collaborative function is important.
Uh-huh. All right. Trying to go back to my original question. There was something else that maybe it wasn't supposed to come up. Um,
Quantum entanglement was before, and then we topped on that one. And then you were
no, it
saying
was
if I'm
after.
always in the super heady space, and I showed you the book that I'm reading. I do
Yeah,
asana yoga. I
but
try to
that
walk
also
around
didn't help.
regularly. Yeah.
That didn't help your case because that book looked heady as fuck.
Oh
Also,
man, it's super dope. But yeah, fair. Sorry.
it's no, yeah, I'm down for the heady. Don't get me wrong. I just asked because um I guess my own personal interests can wane, you know what I mean? And philosophical like spirituality, but on this philosophical side has always, but my past decade has always been pressing. And I guess it's I just have so much shit going on right now, you know. I have like
Right.
a 16-month-old child and keeping up with this and keeping up with that, and then I'm just like I have to slow down on certain things, and sometimes like I can be too heady, you know, like too much in my head, not enough here. I'm going too quick. I don't slow down, and so I was like asking you, like, do you ever turn this off? Like, do you ever turn this sort of quest off and just do things not because you're trying to define things or not because you're trying to fucking evolve the planet, but you're just like, I'm turning left because I'm turning left right here. You know what I mean? There's no fucking
Yes.
grand scheme behind it, or you know what I mean?
Well, I think that may be like my chaosian background. I'm really a big fan of the kind of idea of chaos and the multidimensional experience that we have.
Uh-huh.
But my leisure time is also my productivity time. Because if
Uh-huh.
I don't take a break, nothing I make is worth a damn.
If I don't take a break, say it again.
If I don't take a break, nothing I make is worth a damn.
Uh-huh.
Because it's not being made by somebody who's calm.
Oh, I see.
So there's a teaching in the Bhagavad Gita that has to do with a discussion about tying a ship to a dock. You have a
Mm-hmm.
boat, you got a dock. Now the rope is the thing that you're using to tie, right?
Yeah.
You could tie a couple different kinds of knots. You could have the rope and you could be on the dock and you could like look at the boat and be like, that's an awesome boat. I got to tie a really good knot because I really like that boat, right?
Yeah.
Or you could be on the boat and you'd be tying and be like, wow, this is a really nice dock. It looks really stable. I could be here and like for a while. Ideally, you would want to be paying attention to the knot and tie the knot to be like, this is going to be a really good knot. Right?
Well said. Yeah.
Okay, so in that way, you can look at your relationship with the outer space, the outer reality, other people, other things.
Mm-hmm.
That can be seen as the dock.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at your relationship with what you're going through right now, and that could be seen as the boat.
Mm-hmm.
You could look at your relationship with your entire life, and that could be seen as the knot. Because you are living your life right now. Every time you breathe, you're entering the past. So that's the kind of time-space continuum that our Merkaba field is accelerating through,
Mm-hmm.
is that we're constantly authoring in the Akashic hard drives these ones and zeros of blinking and breathing and paying attention or not paying attention or thinking or not thinking. And I think that creating a not thinking practice is important.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tricky word pattern. I personally think
It is.
that creating a non-thinking practice like meditation, even if it's active or moving meditation, is extremely important.
Uh-huh.
Discipline roots to disciple, to cut from your own cloth, to practice what you preach before you preach it. Be your own disciple. So if you could rate the friendship that you have with yourself, Keith, 1 to 10, how would it be?
It would be an 8, but like on what do you call it? At exponential degrees of change. Like it wouldn't just be 2 up to 10. It'd be like 50 up to 10.
Okay, for sure, for sure. What do you think the smallest change that you could make that would have the largest positive impact in that relationship?
You asked me this question last time. Do you remember
It's
the
the
answer?
same equation, yeah?
That's funny. Um,
See,
That's
consistent. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Which was my answer for the last one. It was consistency.
Here we are.
Oh no, that's funny. And it came up in this conversation earlier too when I found that interesting too that my answers that I gave you were both spectrums that in myself that I judged the hardest. The
Well, I think
negative
it's
I did, you know what I mean?
right. I think it's important for you to develop new ways that you can perceive accountability, because it sounds like you may have a huge amount of credit that you're not giving yourself. So you're playing
Uh,
Monopoly while you're ignoring all of your $500 bills. Like that's fine if you want, but if you got a fat stack of $500 bills, all of a sudden the game of Monopoly changes.
yeah. No, that's a good point actually.
Nice Monopoly reference for sure. I'm trying to like pop culture bingo here. You know what I mean?
Eh,
I think I got like a Dick Tracy, a Rick Roll,
oh
and
man.
maybe Psychic Miss Cleo phone calls. I think that should be good.
Pop Cleo now for your free tarot reading. I should have called her, man. I was like 12 at the time, so I didn't really know what was going on, but I should have called her.
Dang. Well, you could, call to have a conversation with her through the cards.
Yo, that's. You said
That's
you don't like cards too much.
I
You
don't prefer divination as a form of magic because it's my least favorite, as people get so hyphy in it and forget that there are other schools of magic. That's all.
Real talk. So any divination, you're talking rune, you're talking bones, you're talking
Whole
cards,
kit and caboodle, all of it.
all the. What about the pendulum swinging?
Is it divination?
Well, like, what's not divination? Then is what I'm getting at, I guess.
Evocation.
As in
Evoking from your experience, creating
yeah,
things from your own
creating.
consciousness,
Yeah.
choosing to take the water and the flour and the yeast and make the bread. Banana bread. You know
Okay.
what I mean? Invocation. To remember hanging out with your grandparents and to bring that spirit into your life by having a picture of your grandparents by your bed so that every day you have a puja or a daily practice to connect with their energy.
I see.
Illusion. Illusion's not do you want other examples of what not divination?
Yeah, well, actually, yeah, because I mean, you don't like I said, there's and like you said, there's a sort of there's a pop culture to spirituality
Yeah.
that's probably
Dang. Well,
prolonged by social media. You know what I mean?
I'll give you some divination. I went through a yoga teacher training this past year, and one of the individuals involved created this card deck, and it's all neutral things. There's no like suits or anything. It's totally up to interpretation. So because we're here now, I'm just going to open randomly to a card,
Yeah, hit
and then
me.
we'll kind of see what it is. So I tend to do things in threes when it comes to divination myself. So this is a rare time for me on camera, but I do three because the first time is the past, the second one will be the now, and the third one will be how you perceive things going forward.
Fair enough.
It's kind of like an easy spread. We'll just do three different polls and kind of go
Everyone,
from
we're
there.
about to get Richie to do his least favorite form of mage work on camera. Just so you guys, you're missing out if you're not here.
Much respect for the man of letters projects, for sure. Here now doing the things. From here right now, if you want to take a breath, please. And then, as you're comfortable, go ahead and release the breath at your leisure. You decide when. And at the when point, I'll just randomly grab somewhere in this spread, somewhere in all these cards, and I'll just open it up and show it face there. If I got to turn it so you can read it, we'll go from there. But then you'll be the person who reads the card, so it's not my tonality that's getting it. You hear me? I'm ready when you are.
Hit. Play.
So, as much detail as this little camera will get. There we go. Looks like little fairy folk. Looks like little gnome folk.
Fairy folk playing with each other. There's one climbing up on the left right there. Nice.
What rainbow colors they have.
Nice.
All right. So that would be where you're coming from, where the foundation is the roots.
That's how.
Okay. So now this is going to be like where we are now. The heart's the center. All right.
Uh-huh.
You ready? I'll do it. See if I can do it this way. Trying to be ambidextrous here.
Stop. Focus. Protection.
Got like a fractal kind of bubble.
Protection with a fractal kind of bubble. Yeah, exactly. You have the hold it steady, right? Okay. All right, protection. What do you? That's Well, I guess they're called fractals. Some of this. It looks like the things where it zooms in and the corner becomes the
Mandelbrot,
whole
yeah.
thing. Yeah. What's that called?
The Mandelbrot is a mathematical equation that is one of the first fractals, but fractals refer to that micro, 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 macro, macro, macro
Yeah.
similarity.
Okay.
Way
Why
sweet.
protection for that then? It's interesting.
So it could be said that cellular information protects itself, which is why some things evolve and some things don't.
Mm-hmm.
The shark didn't need to evolve to protect itself after a certain amount of time because it was the biggest badass in its dimension.
Uh-huh.
It would need to evolve to protect itself. It would need to change its relationship with protection if it wanted to evolve past humans. So there's a predatory consciousness that exists inside of people, and sometimes they're motivated by that I must take, I must have, I must be in the remover of other people's reality for my reality to gain anything, which is kind of illusory because they believe, therefore, that the external reality is stronger than the internal reality, which is like unseating the observer, therefore discrediting anything they're trying to do. But
Mm-hmm.
they would have to want to make things better to have that conversation to begin with. You hear me?
Yeah.
Way
Yeah.
sweet. For sure. So we got play and protection so far. Ready
Uh-huh.
for the third?
Yes.
All right.
Ah. Creativity.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that kind of looks like a garden, right?
There's your garden again, man. You even have a dragonfly, so you got more fairies in there. You have a what feels like a setting sun. I guess it could be a rising sun too.
So now I
But you're
gotta.
definitely catching that twilight vibe on you, man. Regardless, which is my favorite time of the day, by the way.
Nice. You got it?
Creativity, protection, and no, it was play, protection, creativity.
Oh,
I'm left.
play.
At least we know you're not illusionist, at least by hand.
That's right. We're all delusions of each other.
Play, protection, creativity were our three cards. I know you guys all love your tarot cards. There you go. Play, protection, creativity. That's such a nice spread, man.
Nice. I'll just burn through some more just because I got mad respect for the creator of the deck. So we got a aspiration.
Aspiration. Incubation. Nice. Joy.
Two more.
Looks very phallic, that joy symbol.
Uh-huh.
Hope. Very anime-esque on the hope. Abundance. Dance. I just realized that dance is in the word abundance.
Abundance. Yeah, for sure.
Dance, like dancing.
Cool. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. You guys, I think with no other questions popped up.
Way sweet. I think we called this well. I really appreciate your time and attention today. Thank you so much for creating this container and allowing me to share things and asking questions and keeping things together.
Yeah, dude, thanks for coming back on. That was super cool. I would love to keep chatting, but I'm fucking exhausted. This is like the latest live we've ever run. Nice. I'm stuck.
Dang. Well, blessed waves for a bunch of water before you get to sleep, and gratitude for all the listeners who've hung on this far.
Absolutely. One more question before you leave. You said you had people out here. You should cruise out to California, man. You're in Colorado?
I'm in Montana land right now.
Montana land. Nice up there. Is it nice in Montana?
Very nice.
Probably lots of wilderness out there, yeah.
Super duper earthy, but you gotta have the acquired taste because it's I think a little more than a mile up in elevation.
Oh.
So, right, different kind of space. But yeah, I figure provided the world narrative and the global travel narrative is something that we can work with positively, I'd like to be around the California coast because I helped build a Buddhist temple up near Humboldt, which was really fun.
Of course you did.
Sometime beginning of October.
Wait, start again. You're coming in October, is that what you're saying?
that's my current trajectory of what I'm trying to look at, but I don't know how
Oh, nice.
travel goes. If travel is not a thing and
Oh,
we
that's what
can't
you were
go
saying.
anywhere, then I'm not really going to be able to do that. But if we can, I kind of want to have that kind of scope and scale. So I'm also trying to
Ooh,
go spend a little bit of time in the Alabama lands because I got friends down over there.
nice.
So doing a lot of time space teleportation, but right now I appreciate the digital containers and virtual space. So yeah,
Yeah,
as soon as I
ski.
got travel plans, I'll let you know. You're in which part of California?
I'm in SoCal.
Okay,
Coast,
nice.
along the coast. I'm so coastal SoCal.
Nice, way sweet. Well, I would
Super
say
sweet.
in that incident, please pass my love and gratitude to Oceana, the spirit of the ocean. I got much.
Oh, one of my favorites. Probably, if not my favorite spirit. I've lived in 7, 8 cities, and they've all been coastal. All of them, all of California coast, man. I love it.
Nice. Well, I'd say if you got like a mason jar or something, you could get a scoop of ocean water and just like have it kind of in your space. And then you could like kind of play with that emoto or like energy resonance because it's going to have kind of like an organite effect. It's going to bring in a different field consciousness.
Nice. I'd never thought to do the jars of water, or my own personal nature holy water.
Have you not seen The Water Boy with Adam Sandler?
I have, and I've seen it a lot. I loved that movie. That was such a good.
Well, then you need to have like your, Arctic spring
Little
water. You know what I
glacier,
mean?
little glacier. Oh shit! All right, man. Well, thank you for being back and chatting. I'm down to chat fucking every week, every other week, whatever. I'm sure we can talk about damn near everything.
Thing for sure. So I'd say
Yeah,
let's
sure.
let time move forward. Throw a dart at the board. There's like some new moon coming up. I think.
There's
I
always
think.
a new moon coming up, man. I feel like.
I mean, if you're into wax, there's a full moon first.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I know.
I'm,
I was just being facetious and talking
no worries. I want to find out
shit.
just so I know what is our current moon phase, unless you happen to know.
I no, I don't. I don't. Haven't.
Last I checked, we were in like a full moon in Capricorn or something like that.
That is true. That was the night of our podcast, actually. When we
Okay,
first met was the full moon in Capricorn night.
nice. Some lunar tides. So it says today the moon is in a waning gibbous phase.
Nice. So we're good on letting go of things. That's waning, right?
Uh-huh. And the new moon is the July 20th to 21st. So we got like about 9 days to get there. But I figure probably talk either before, at that time, or after. Sound good?
Yeah, and we'll plan some astrological shit with it.
I'm
We'll
totally
get it.
down.
We'll get it as dialed in as it can. All right, everyone. Say thanks, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for staying up, you guys. It's late, nice. It's Friday night. You guys could be anywhere, doing anything, kind of quarantine and whatnot. But you're here amongst the millions of shit going on, and we appreciate the hell out of that more than you realize. And we'll talk to all you guys soon. Thanks, man. Have a good night, and
Thank you much. Take care. Remember to breathe.
I'll breathe. Promise. All right, take it easy.
Peace.